We had the DMT injection. They scanned our brain with EEG caps. And then during that study and our study, most volunteers were reporting meeting alien and entity encounters.
I mean, that's the strange thing of this study, is that they all seem to be reporting the same thing, right? They were all reporting meeting the same entities, which were what? Aliens and...
Mantis beings, and octopoids and machine elves. And yeah, that's the interesting thing is like, that's where it gets very interesting. Like people from different cultures, different backgrounds, when they go to these spaces, they come back with very similar experiences. It's not just like for example, it's not just like when people see mantis beings, they also not just report seeing mantis beings, they also report waking up in a lab like environment, and then they see these mantid beings doing research on them. Or when they see these elves like cosmic elves, or as Terence McKenna would call them, machine elves, they say that these machine elves always tell you like, oh, you haven't been here in a long time, we miss you, and then here, look at this, look at that. They try to teach you a language.
Okay, Batuhan, welcome.
Thank you.
Right. It's late at night that we're starting this, so hopefully it's going to work out okay. But right, so Batuhan Bintas, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Batuhan Bintas has done something very special, which is take part in the Imperial College London DMTx trials, which I think is better Batuhan explains this, but they're a very special thing. So Batuhan, what the hell is DMTx? How did you get in these trials? What the hell are they? Tell me about DMTx.
Yeah. So DMTx is the extended state DMT trials that were, because DMT is very short lasting, and then the scientists figured out a way to to continuously continue the DMT injection to the person and then keep the person in that space, because whether you inject DMT or you smoke DMT, after 10-15 minutes you come back, because as far as I know, it's because our bodies releases monoamine oxidase and then it destroys the DMT. So that's why DMT is short lasting when it's smoked or injected. But then by the time people that experience DMT know that when you smoke DMT, you get into that space. It's this incredible shock to your mind, and then by the time you actually understand that, oh, actually, wow, I'm in the DMT space. It's just too late, and you come back. So in the DMTx studies, they continue to giving DMT to the people to keep them in that space. But actually, I was part of the studies in 2016 when they were testing the dosage on us. That was even before, I say before, the DMT infusion became cool. And this was the study took place in 2016, and they were testing the dosage on us from low dosage, medium and high dosage. And then after testing dosage on us, they were then deciding the dosage to give to people in fMRI. And then following that, then they started DMTx. So we were like the guinea pigs of the guinea pigs.
Did you also take part in the normal DMTx later once they figured out the dosage?
They asked me, but I didn't want to, because so after 2016, my DMT infusion that I had at age 23, I had several other DMT experiences where I was told not to come back.
Not by any human, you mean some entities on the
DMT,
veil told you not to come back.
Exactly. Almost like the DMT dimension itself told me. In my last experience with DMT in 2020, it told me, we've shown you enough. Yeah. You've already been here. You come from this space. You chose to go and enjoy the physical material realm. Why are you sticking your head back here? Yeah. You'll come here anyway. And then at some point you will return here, but just enjoy and do your work in the physical material realm. And
it's the Tim Leary thing, right? I think that's Tim Leary. So when you get the message, hang up the phone.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, the message was I make it sound soft, but it was a quite traumatizing experience. It was very hard, challenging experience. It lasted 10 minutes in this life, but there when I was there was an eternity. I was, for the lack of a better word, the closest thing I can call it was like a purgatory.
All right, first thing, we're using the word DMT a lot. Probably most people have heard of DMT, but I don't know if everyone knows what it is. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should just cover that first. What the hell is DMT?
Well, DMT stands for dimethyltryptamine. It's the most powerful psychedelic molecule that we know, yet it's present in almost all living being. It's present in our bodies. As far as I know, it's in our bloodstream. Then it's found in plants, insects.
I thought insects are the only thing it's not found in. I thought it's found in all animals and many plants, but not insects.
Okay.
I don't know. I may be wrong. Which is a strange thing because insects often turn up in that.
Then okay, yeah. I mean, I always say, many living beings have DMT. Let's put it that way, and that's the really strange thing. Is the first of all, the most powerful psychedelic that allows you to tap into other dimensions, talk to other entities, are found in all.
It's already in our bodies.
It's exactly. But not only that, what really fascinates me is the fact that we have another system in our body called monoamine oxidase, and it's one of its roles is to regulate DMT. So when you eat DMT or plants that have DMT, they're not orally active because your stomach has a system inbuilt to it to stop from DMT reaching your brain. I'm like, why did the great creator designed this DMT molecule and then put a system in us to regulate it? It's like, isn't that crazy? Yeah.
So, I mean, you've described that as a curtain before, I think.
Opening the curtain.
That we have the ability to perceive a much wider reality. I mean, our brain, some people think of the brain as a generator of consciousness. Some people think of it as a radio, or as a receiver of consciousness. My suspicion is the brain is more like a filter in terms of there is this giant, unfathomable, infinite fractal reality out there. And we perceive a very, very, very small part of it, both on the visual field. The visual spectrum for humans is so tiny compared to the spectrum of light and sound and waves. And we filter it, and yet we have the DMT on our bodies that would allow us to perceive more of the totality. And yet we have this filtering system in place which filters the DMT from happening. So we have what you've called a curtain. So can you explain that? How does that work with the MAOI, and how can we pull back that curtain?
I mean, I would like to first start by saying how I see DMT is it's a good metaphor is like the internet, so we all use the internet every day, You can ask anyone on the street, they will say that they believe the internet exists. I always ask these people, do you believe the internet exists? They're like, what do you mean? Yeah, of course internet exists. I'm like, okay, then prove me that it exists. Where is the internet?
It's flowing around between us in the waves around our faces.
Exactly, it's in the cloud. It's well, you can't touch it, you can't smell it. But how do you interact with it? And then people show their phones. I'm like, exactly. You use a device to alter your perception to touch into this digital dimension. It's a dimension. And then I see this as a metaphor for, perhaps DMT is another form of tool or other psychedelics that it alters our chemical structure in our bodies. Chemical alters our, biological computer that we call, the body. And then it allows the consciousness, let's call it the software, to tap into these other parallel, dimensions that are always there. So I don't think what we experience is hallucination. It's actually what we're seeing. We're experiencing what's more to reality. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There are different layers of existence. I think that's what happens. We do touch them. Yeah.
Okay. So you were taking. You were part of this DMTx trial. You had the DMTx again. You were the guinea pig, so they didn't have the dose right. Were they overdosing you or underdosing you? How did that go?
No. So I think they wanted to understand which dose was the best for the the following study, which was the fMRI. So we were not told that which dose we were getting, but I remember I was on the phone with the Chris Timmerman, and then he was interviewing me for the trial, and then he was like, "Are you okay with not knowing that you're getting either low, medium, or high dose? You'll be getting one of three." And then I told him, I'm like, I'm okay with low and medium, but maybe I don't want to get the high dose. Then he was like, I can't have you to the study then. I'm like, why not? He's like, you have to be okay to, getting the high dose as well. I literally at that moment, I remember I put my phone down, closed it, and I was like, and I looked up and I was like universe, I was like, Batuhan, when are you going to have an opportunity of, participating in a clinical trial on DMT again in your life? And I picked it up. I was like, I'll do it. Yeah.
Okay.
And then later on, I realized then couple of years later, I came across Chris Timmerman at a conference. He then told me that I was one of the high dose.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So were those experiences stronger than your subsequent experiences, or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was my, I don't recommend people doing this at home. Like injection of DMT is a totally different, but like with every heartbeat, it was just getting intensified and intensified. And on the peak of the experience, I met, for the lack of a better word, God, this omnipotent creator consciousness that people also report meeting on 5-MeO DMT. In fact, I could compare the experience, and we were giving an NDMT injection, and then experience became like 5-MeO. Maybe we should actually talk about like the difference of DMT.
Please do.
Yeah, because like when people talk about DMT, they refer to NN-DMT, which usually is related, connected with like known for giving you visual experience, like meeting the elves, going into another dimension, seeing a lot of fractals, you meet otherworldly intelligences and beings that are made of light, that are insectoids, so on and so forth, and you see what's more to reality. Whereas 5-MeO DMT, also known as the toad, buffo, jaguar, when you smoke it, there is no visual experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there is just pure connection with this omnipotent creator consciousness, that God. Almost like how I see it is like, because I come from a technological background, I always see NN-DMT is what you have within the game server, and then 5-MeO DMT is the server itself, the everything, all the code.
So DMT versus mushrooms, they're both in the same, psilocybin is in the same family. It's a tryptamine, like dimethyltryptamine. So the difference between DMT and mushrooms is similar to the difference between DMT and 5-MeO DMT, or are they so radically different?
So DMT is like NN-DMT is like the base molecule. So when you like psilocybin, which is the active compound in magic mushrooms, has DMT molecule, and then it has another oxygen group. I think it's got like 4 oxygen and one hydrogen. Then that's what that's what differs from difference between DMT and psilocybin. And then when you consume the mushroom, your body breaks psilocybin into psilocin, which is only 1 oxygen molecule away from being DMT. So some researchers like Rick Strassman, who's done the second DMT research at New Mexico University in the US, who is also the author of DMT Spirit Molecule, he suggests in the book that psilocybin magic mushrooms can be considered as orally active DMT, which is quite interesting. But the experience is different. Yet, so, if you take enough mushrooms, you do go to DMT worlds and stay there much longer.
But your strongest experience then was with the DMTx, where they keep feeding you the NN-DMT.
Yeah, they gave me only 1 injection.
Just 1 injection.
And it was 15 minutes.
15 minutes. So that's the same period of time as a normal smoke DMT treatment.
Yeah, because they were just like, they injected me 1, and then it was just 1 shot for us. Study.
I see. So then once they found the correct dose, then the DMTx was to keep them on a drip of DMT, basically.
As far as I know, what happened was so they were testing the dosage on us because the main study was like they wanted to put people into fMRI scanners, but they wanted to understand which dose they were going to choose to give those people. But they still scanned our brain. We had the DMT injection. They scanned our brain with EEG caps, and then they put 80 people, as far as I know, into the fMRI scanner, and then they scanned their brains and with the dosage that they decided on our study. And then during that study and our study, most volunteers were reporting meeting alien and entity encounters.
I mean, that's the strange thing of this study, is that they all seem to be reporting the same thing, right? They were all reporting meeting the same entities, which were what? Aliens and...
Mantis beings, and octopoids and machine elves, and that's the interesting thing is that's where it gets very interesting. Like people from different cultures, different backgrounds, when they go to these spaces, they come back with very similar experiences. It's not just like for example, it's not just when people see mantis beings, they also not just report seeing mantis beings, they also report waking up in a lab, like environment, and then they see these mantid beings doing research on them, or when they see these elves, like cosmic elves, or as Terence McKenna would call them, machine elves, they say that these machine elves always tell you like, oh, you haven't been here in a long time, we miss you, and then here, look at this, look at that, they try to teach you a language. And then what I find very fascinating, since you mentioned the curtain, I'll give you something from my childhood, is that I was born and raised in Turkey, so I was raised within Islamic culture, and in Islam, in the book, the Quran says that there are humans and there are genies, and Prophet Muhammad, the prophet of the Islam, is the prophet of not only humans but also the jinns. Quran openly talks about like how jinns are like as intelligent as humans and they can interact with human beings, but like the jinn dimension is another dimension that that humans shouldn't, how do you call it, we should be careful communicating with them, because once we're in their dimension, they know that dimension better than we do, and they can take advantage.
That dimension, though, the jinns, as I understand the jinns, they interact also with our world, right? Like,
exactly. So
almost like ghosts, something along those lines.
Yeah, they come and interact with our world as well. So my grandma was a Sufi, and then our bedtime stories were about like how like Allah created multiple dimensions, human dimension as humans. There's jinn dimension. There's many other dimensions with its own intelligences. Yet, because Allah also, put a curtain in front of our eyes, that job is to, filter a human experience, humans.
That's in the Quran?
But that's like Sufi teachings.
Okay.
My grandma was telling us. Okay. I'm not sure if it's in the Quran, but like, it's in the Turkish Islamic teachings.
Right.
And then my grandma said like, the curtain is there to filter reality, but she said there are ways to open the curtain, but one must be very careful. So growing up with the idea, I was just like very curious about like what's on the other side of the curtain. So when I took mushrooms for the first time at age 18, I thought I was going to see flying pink elephants, but I was in the middle of a forest tripping on 5 grams of dry mushrooms, and I was just like, oh my God, I opened the curtain. I was like, I need to tell my grandma about this.
Did your grandma ever open the curtain herself? Did she ever get to the other side?
That's the interesting part. So my grandma, she's as far as I know, and I also believe that she's never done psychedelics. And but the interesting thing is when she was on her deathbed. So when she was diagnosed with cancer, and then she was just after she went into her last operation in 2018, and then when she came back, she told me that she was like just before the operation table. She told me, she was like, as soon as she came back from the operation, she was like, Batuhan, I need to tell you something. I'm like, wow. She's like, I solved them. I'm like, so who, grandma? And then she was like, because she raised us with this shamanic and Islamic surah, which is like this, it's called Bismillahirrahmanirrahim ve billahi sur 70 bin ayetel kürsi ata bindir etrafımızdadır, which is this half Arabic, half Turkish surah, for, in other words, like a spell that she raised us with, and then she taught us to use it. And in it, you're asking God to send its otherworldly beings, put them on horses, and then surround you with those beings and protect you. And then she told me, I saw those beings. I literally, and then I was like, what did they look like? And then the way she defined them, like literally, if I close my, she literally defined the machine elves. She was telling me that they had pointy, the nose, pointy ears. Like if I close my eyes and actually listen to my grandma, I couldn't tell whether she's telling me a DMT trip or, at the end of the trip. And then she literally had it just before her operation. Apparently they were telling her, we're looking after you. Then 6 months, when was that? Yes, 6 months after that, at the ayahuasca trip, a friend of mine told me that he was experiencing, like seeing the same beings. They no connection with my grandma, but like again, that friend of mine at the ayahuasca trip, during the trip, he saw these beings that he defined to me as the same way my grandma defined to me, and they were doing operations on him and they were healing him.
This is the fucking weird thing about this entire thing, is that everyone is seeing the same thing. So okay, in your grandma's case, it makes sense that she was flooded with DMT in her brain at a near-death experience. So in preparation for this interview, I was trying to look into this very popular, though poorly founded concept that DMT is produced by the pineal gland. Now, what we've found, there are some studies that have found DMT in the pineal gland. They've also found it in other parts of the brain, the brain stem. But what they found is that when they give a rat a heart attack, it floods their brain with DMT. And when people take DMT, the things they experience are very similar to near-death experiences. There are, a couple of studies about this. And so with your grandma on her deathbed, it makes sense she was flooded with DMT and she could access that realm. She could see behind the curtain. Now, the question is, why is everyone seeing the same fucking thing? It's so strange. It's so strange. Is it just brain pharmacology? Is it just a weird thing that we have the DMT in our brain, and when it's released, suddenly our brain starts producing images of elves and and octopuses and aliens and mantises? Or are they out there? Are they in here or out there? What's your take? What do you think?
I mean, either way is quite fascinating. Like, let's say the consciousness is generated in the brain, hence, when you apply DMT to the body, like the DMT then makes our brain, almost it works like in this AI prompt, goes through, an AI model and then feeds and then creates these visuals, because it can be that our brains are programmed to create these experiences, or when we give DMT to the brain, then the brain then works as like a receiver of this other dimension that is inhabited by other world entities. I mean, either scenario is so fascinating for me. Like if it's not other dimension, if it's fully generated by our brain, okay, let's assume that. Then why do we have these experiences? Why is it like hardly wired into our brain? Because you go back thousands of years, you look at Egyptian mythology, Greek mythology, you look at the cave paintings, like you see same entities again there. Like if you put together like a cave painting and today's DMT, DMTx trials, volunteers, DMT report of what they drove, they look identical. So it's like, for me, that's quite mind-bending. And then on the other hand is, if we could accept the fact that there's another dimension that has its inhabitants, such as elves, Mantis beings, and all that, that's also another quite fascinating. Like, I mean, if we prove that's like like discovery of America.
Yeah. Well, there's so much in this DMT realm that deserves study, and being looked into and better understood, because it's got so much to offer our lost, immature species. However, it's illegal and very, very difficult to get and very, very difficult to research. How did ICL, Imperial College, how did they get away with this? How did they manage to convince the government to let them give people DMT? Because, that's pretty wild. I mean, how did they do that?
I don't know.
What was their excuse? What did they say they're looking for?
Maybe, the first study that I was part of, like I don't want to talk on behalf of this, the psychedelic research team at the Imperial College, because I also know them, closely, but like maybe they were looking for like DMT's effect on depression, or because like I think it was maybe something along those lines, so something medical, something healing, something like looking at like different psychedelics, effects on human mind, something like that. Because then they, as they start giving DMT to people, administrated DMT, they then started getting all these strange trip reports and entity encounters. Then they got the funding, I think, for doing, okay, we have now enough trip reports about entity encounters, let's communicate with these beings. And then they did the DMTx, and then I think that study was purely about entity encounters. Our study wasn't about entity encounters. They were asking us questions about entities, and but they were asking questions like, did you meet God? Did you meet an entity? What did they tell you? Can you draw them? But then they also had like questions like, how did you feel before the experience? How did you feel afterwards? Like, did it help you with your mood? Do you feel depressed? Do you feel uplifted? So on and so on. So they were also looking at looking at it from that point of view as well.
Can you answer? Did it improve your mood? Did it help you?
Oh my God, it changed my life. Yeah.
In what
Yeah.
way?
Well, like for example, I remember in 2016, one thing that changed was once I experienced that unconditional love of God. I had a pretty promiscuous lifestyle before that. I couldn't afterwards. I just couldn't, just go around and just sleep around and just, do the, the crazy, had to continue with the promiscuous lifestyle. That's completely shifted, because not only just that, but it's just like, just when you experience that type of like love, like you just want to get the fast food love doesn't make sense anymore, let's put it that way.
Right.
So that really shifted. It changed my perception of religion, like a month after my injection, I went to Turkey, and then the first thing I did was I told my dad, I'm like, Daddy, I want you to take me to mosques. And he's like, what happened to you? I'm like, I'm gonna tell you everything. I don't want you to freak out, but like, please listen to me. And I literally talked for half an hour. We were in the car waiting for my sister, and he was just like, didn't say a single word. When I finished and I told him that I want to go to mosques, he said to me, he said, so are you telling me that what I couldn't have done, like referring to converting me into Islam, was done by mushrooms? I'm like, yeah, Dad. And he was like,
Did the mosque do something for you? Did they give you what you were looking for? Did they
absolutely
admit passage back into that realm? Is that...
So the next day he then took me to Green Mosque in Bursa, which is an ancient Ottoman mosque, very psychedelic, and it's called Green Mosque, but it's very blue. And I literally remember walking in. I walked in, and I looked up. You know how psychedelic Islamic art is, and I kneeled and I started crying.
Wow.
And I was immediately taken back to that dimension again. And then
It's quite similar, actually.
Yeah.
You're
And
right.
then my dad was just like, he was literally looking at his son, and he was just saying, what is going on, because he's never seen me. And then like that. And even today, I mean, I don't really say like I feel I belong to any religion, but I am all the religions. So, it's like I see that every religion is like trying to make sense of this mystical realm that prophets, shamans, alchemists have been touching. The thing about Islam and then Islamic art is I've done a lot of research on that as well. I was just like, why is it so psychedelic, and why is it so
Why is it?
DMT?
Because they're not... Islam is not typically a kind of shamanic, let's take drugs and see the other side of the realm religion. So why is it so psychedelic?
But you will say so. But if you actually go to the origins of Islam, they were before Islam on the land. So I was raised in Turkey with the thought that before Prophet Muhammad, they were worshipping idols around Kaaba. So Kaaba, the black cube, it was an epicenter of religion for hundreds of years. And they were worshipping idols around the Kaaba. And the Prophet Muhammad said that, he's the messenger of Allah, and Allah is the omnipotent creator. And then he gets kicked out from Kaaba, and then he gathers an army, invades Kaaba, takes over, and then destroys these idols. This is, how we were raised. And then as I grew up, and then I got into all the DMT, and then, I saw my DMT visions in the mosques, and I was like, what is going on? It's like, because I left my country, Turkey, because of the religious, suppression, and then I was like, the last thing that I will think that my psychedelic experiences will connect me back to religion. So then I started doing research on this, and then I found out that the idols that they were destroying around Kaaba were actually they belonged to a goddess called Al-Utsa, and Prophet Muhammad was the prophet of Allah. So Al-Utsa's followers were using acacia, and acacia was the sacred plant of Al-Utsa. And as we know that acacia contains dimethyltryptamine, and then there are even historical books that talk about that around Kaaba there were 3 ancient acacia trees.
But again, it doesn't work though because of the monoamine oxidase in our stomachs.
But in Quran specifically talks about Syrian rue, which is the plant from the Middle East that contain monoamine oxidase inhibitor. And then I think there might be some even like sayings from Prophet Muhammad that talks about like how the smoke of Syrian rue like gives visions, and Syrian rue was used widely in Middle East and ancient Anatolia even in today's, like, Islamic, like today's Turkey, people use Syrian rue for cleansing themselves. You can buy it in, kilograms, but only very small group of people know that, it contains monoamine oxidase inhibitor, which is one of the, what's the main compound in ayahuasca.
So when you take it, it will make the endogenous DMT in your body active, and it'll work, and you'll have something off that. But also, if you take it with the mimosa, then you'll have the same like an ayahuasca trip. You'll be in another dimension.
Yeah, but we know that. I mean, today people, mix acacia with Syrian rue.
They call it pharmahuasca or something like that.
Yeah, or like something. It's like it's another concoction, like similar to ayahuasca, and then they even say that the mountain where Moses received it, the messages, like the event burning bush. He sees the God, in the smoke of this burning bush. And then when we look at the Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai, I think it's in Egypt, and we know that where that event took place. So when we look at the plantation of that mountain, it's acacia trees. So I'm like, is that just a coincidence? I personally don't think so. There's a connection there, and some academics from Israel, they even say that perhaps Moses was using combining acacia with Syrian rue and having this kind of visions.
Okay, so if Moses is doing that, what about the guys who are designing the foundation of Islamic art style, which is psychedelic? You think those guys are all tripping on this too?
I don't know that yet, but like I am still doing research into this field, so I don't want to say this or that, but like what I found in my research is that some sources say that before Islam, then during the Alutsa tradition was white, like she was one of the top goddesses that was worshipped in the Arabic Peninsula, and as a tradition of that religion, they were, as far as I know, were building their temples next to acacia trees. And what happens when a new army invades the city? The first thing they do is convert the churches into their own belief system. So I'm questioning and still doing research on like to what extent that psychedelic Islamic art actually comes from Alutsa's acacia tradition. So maybe when Kaaba was invaded, then the could it be that the temples were then Alutsa temples with these visuals from the acacia tree were then converted into mosques, and then the tradition just continued.
Okay, so I like that. That's a cool idea. So the Islamic art thing is one way that potential hidden symbols of the DMT realm are somehow still in our mainstream religions. There's another one which is the pine cone, which the Pope uses in his staff. I think was it called the shepherd's rod?
They have it at the heart of Vatican as well.
Exactly, and this pine cone symbol, it turns up. David Wilcock was into this, and a couple other guys. It's appears with the Assyrian Apkallu, the 7 sages. They'd be feeding the pine cone to people, and then Osiris had it, and in Hinduism, and in Mexico, and in Dionysus and Bacchus, and just like deities all through ancient religion seem to have this symbolism of the pine cone, and they seem to be wanting to give it to people. Then there's this idea that the pineal gland, which is of course associated with the pine cone, is the source of the DMT. Descartes called the pineal gland the seat of the soul. So it's in the pineal gland. We know it's there, at least, whether it's produced there or not. We're producing it in our bodies. It's already there. Yet it's so incredibly illegal, nobody's allowed to research this apart from one miracle study by ICL. Why do you think it is so illegal? What are they scared of with this? Most psychedelics are illegal in some way or another, but DMT is already in our bodies. Why are they criminalizing us? What's your take on that?
I mean, that's a very deep rabbit hole that okay, let's jump into it. So I don't. Like the fact that DMT is illegal makes us human beings illegal.
It's so stupid.
It's so stupid. We're like walking illegal beings. And
not just us, everything on Earth, apart from insects, maybe.
By the way, they also find, besides pineal gland, they also found the DMT might be also produced by lungs as well. But let's go back to pineal gland. Is that it's just I mean, I also try to make sense of it, but this is not only the first time that this is made illegal. Like you mentioned Bacchantes, for example. Like they were the followers of Dionysus. For the lack of a better word, some of the first, historically acknowledged hippies, they were like, this crazy, almost like circus being, like that circus, like, they will come to your city, and if you, back in ancient Greece, if you heard that Bacchantes were coming to your city, that meant that the chaos is coming, like.
He was the god of pleasure or something along those
Dionysus,
lines, right?
the god of chaos, god of wine,
And
god of pleasure.
Bacchus was the sort of Roman incarnation of Dionysus.
Yeah, but Bacchantes were like the followers of Dionysus. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
All right.
And then and they were like, they were just like really promiscuous, and they would like have like, drink
Hedonists.
hedonists. Yeah, exactly. And they would drink like psychoactive wine, and they would go from city to city, and then just like share this elixir, of probably something very psychedelic.
Great.
But what happened was like Romans banned it because in Rome, the Roman Empire was strong because it was run by manly man, go to war. That's what they needed, and then and the Roman army needed to go city by city, village by village, and collect men for war. And Bacchantes were one of the the most the most dangerous thing to the establishment of Rome, because they were promiscuous, they were opening people's minds, they were practicing homosexuality. So, and wherever Bacchantes went to, people started like kind of protesting against Rome. They were like rising again. They were like they were choosing not to go to the army. It's very similar to what happened in 1960s and 70s with the Vietnam War. Back then we had hippies instead of Bacchantes. We had, instead of spike wine, we had LSD, and people didn't join the Roman army, or people didn't join the American army to go to Vietnam War. So it's just history repeating itself. What happened to Bacchantes was actually terrible. Like, Rome massacred them all. They killed them all, and it was just they didn't just ban, they just killed them all. And the same thing happened also when Spaniards when Spanish and the Portuguese went to South America, Central America. They didn't just find cities made of gold, but they also discovered a new culture that had mushrooms at the core of its religious teachings. So we know that there's a historical evidence that some of the Spanish and the Portuguese explorers were invited to mushroom ceremonies. So they joined Aztec and Mayan mushroom ceremonies, and they started like having some because the sources say that they started having altered states of consciousness experience. They started meeting these godly beings, and they started communicating with God. And then they turned to Pope, who was initially sending them. Then they were like, well, we kind of don't need you anymore. We can have a direct communication with the God. Why would we need you?
Don't need the middleman.
Exactly. But Pope didn't like it. That's when they start banning, the mushroom, the use of mushroom, a practice of mushrooms were banned in, Mesoamerica, during that time. So, and they were just like trying to destroy this culture. So, and the same thing happened, when Allah followers invaded Kaaba and took over. One of the first things that the commandments from Prophet Muhammad was to destroy all the idols and cut down all the acacia trees. And I think as the Islamic Empire rise and started getting bigger and take over, Islam started spreading, they also continued this.
So you'd say then the foundation of this illegality is a kind of an exploitative, dominating, warlike culture that needs men to feed their machine. And if people take the psychedelics, then they turn away from that and turn direct spiritual connection to something, and they don't need that anymore.
Yes and no. I mean, like when we actually think about psychedelics, like we would like to think it's all about love and light, hippy dippy. But no, I mean, for example, in ancient Egypt, they used to believe that this all having communication, the opportunity to have communication with God, so like taking psychedelics were should be practiced by elites, elite priests. I think Aldous Huxley said the same thing, in our modern times, that like psychedelics should be only available to elites. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't remember that, but
so like even today, like in some communities, we see that people love to explore this, in other words, being dimensions, beings and entities, but some people want to keep the power to themselves. So I don't want to get too much into, like conspiracy theories and all that, but like I always question that if you and I, talk about this, and if many people are talking about this scientific study about it, then, perhaps governments and, other organizations may also be, already aware of this. And so we don't know what's going on behind the curtains. We don't really know, like we don't really know what's happening in life, it's like, so, the question is like, yes, they're illegal, but like, is there an agenda? Or is there,
or is it just a bunch of narrow-minded morons?
Yeah, is it narrow-minded born morons, or is there an agenda around this spiritual interdimensional war, so on and so forth? Or is there an agenda because these companies want to make money? Because if you legalize mushrooms, like it's a competitor to antidepressants. There's a bit of that as well.
That makes sense. There's also this idea, and I don't know how much faith I ascribe to it, but just an idea that there are entities beyond the realm that are not good and do not wish to help humans and guide humanity in certain ways to suppress human consciousness. So you have obviously had a lot of experience with these entities through your DMT experiences. Are they all good? Have you ever met any weird, bad, shady demons, I don't know, whatever, bad spirits that they're out there to suppress human consciousness, or is it generally a good experience and good things that you meet out there?
Yeah, I mean, I met entities that it's like, it's very interesting because like in Quran, for example, like you said, it talks about the genes, and it says that genes can be both benevolent or malevolent, and genes would make you, because we have free will, at the end of the day we make the final choice. But then Quran says the genes can affect you and affect your decision making and lead you to wrong decisions. So I certainly had that kind of experience, with entities like showing themselves as X, but like showing them as love and light beings, knowing but in reality they were just like, they had a different agenda. And to begin with, it just feels so great to like have that experience. But then you go like, hold on a second, like, this is like, because it feels like the entity knows about me a bit too much. And then and kind of like giving you like everything that you want to see, you want to experience, you want to feel, and then boom, then they take something from you. Then you realize that like, okay, they were giving me all these things because their real agenda was to take this thing from me, or lead me to make this, wrong decision. So I would say that we're still figuring out what these entities are, and one must be very careful, going, like my grandma was saying, if you want to open the curtain, like be ready, that what might come from there. I sometimes think that, when we're about to smoke DMT or in the lab, who knows, maybe the entities in the other dimension, they go like, they're about to do it, okay, and then they just like, they just fight each other, and then whichever wins, then the moment you smoke DMT, they connect to your consciousness.
That one's in control.
Yeah.
I've played with this idea that when we have a psychedelic experience through a plant, there's a spirit, and it may be that plant spirit, or it may be another independent spirit, also has a human trip at the same time. And
that's a very good approach, by the way.
We'll get into that. I got some thoughts about that, which we'll get into. But first of all, we're talking about all these entities, and it's a very fluffy, nebulous concept. You have a very rough idea, some kind of weird little dude, grinning dude, whatever. Can you describe it in more detail? What are these entities? Okay, so there's some octopoid ones, some mantoid ones, some elves. What the fuck are DMT elves? Well, if you're giving a police sketch to a police sketch artist, and you're like, yeah, he's got this shape eyes. Give me some detail. What do they look like? What are these things?
Okay, let's start with the most famous one, like, since you mentioned the elf ones. The machine elves, also known as cosmic elves, is one of the most commonly experienced DMT entity. And
when you say common, sorry, in the DMTx study, when you said most people were seeing this, do you know the percentage? Is like everyone seeing these?
I actually know another DMT scientist called Agatha, and Agatha Fochil. I can never pronounce her surname, but like she took 200,000 Reddit DMT trip reports. Agatha and Georgia, the two girls, they took thousands of DMT trip reports from Reddit, and they use an AI, and they actually classify every trip.
Okay.
And when you look at it, like, you know, you
You
look
see the percentages of how many people are saying
exactly,
octopuses.
exactly,
Right,
yeah.
right.
I'm happy to connect you with them,
Well,
and it's a really fascinating, you know, research they've done.
Yeah.
So you can see, you know, how many, you know, and from when you look at it, like, you know, it's like Cosmic Elves, Machine Elves are one of the most common ones. The Cosmic Serpent, the Ayahuasca Serpent is another one. Jesters is another one. Mantis beings, uh, light beings, angels. I find it really funny, you know, angels are like the DMT entities, but they're the most famous DMT entities accepted by billions of people around the world. Then Hindu and Egyptian deities as another, you know, a big chunk of Reddit DMT research, the DMT trip reports by people is people talking about how they experience Hindu deities without even knowing what Hinduism was. Yeah, it's which is something I also experienced as well.
With Ganesh.
With Ganesh, yeah.
So, okay, on the one hand, it's absolutely bloody crazy that everyone's seeing the same thing. On the other hand, on planet Earth, we have like 9 million different species of animals. Why are we only seeing like 5 different things in DMT realm? Or is it that actually they're seeing so many different things, it's just those are the commonalities? What do you think?
I think maybe like our brain filters it and then just like creates and puts these things, you know, in that shape, and we don't really know. I mean, but like how I see it is maybe what we see there is like it's a little bit like, you know, let's say if we were playing the, you know, if I'm in this room and I'm playing Mario, which is on a flat screen, you know, if I could put my finger in that Mario game, the Mario as a character would only see my finger as a line, 2D, and then if I put forefinger, it will see a, you know, longer line. If I put one finger, just a shorter line, right? Because it's the 2D world. But
It's the flatland idea.
exactly, yeah. So like, but me from a 3D dimension, I would see Mario and also everything in 3D. Would Mario ever know that that line actually belongs to someone's hand? And it's this, you know, when you zoom out to 4th and 5th and 6th dimension. So if we assume in the theory that, you know, we connect to another dimension, so then maybe all these fractals that we see is just, you know, these entities coming to our dimension, and we just see their like weird 3D, you know, our 3D version that our brain's trying to, you know, like make sense of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand.
That's
okay.
how I
well,
see
I
it.
asked you to describe the finger that's going into our world, the thing
Yeah.
that you're seeing.
Yeah.
Sorry, and I interrupted
But-
you. So the police sketch artist. What are you seeing? Are these
But what
elves?
really fascinates me is that, you know, when people report seeing certain entities like Cosmic Elves, they also not just define the same elf, but they also talk about the same message that these elves talk about. Or when they see a mantis being, not just they define the same mantis being, they also define the same environment where they see mantis beings. Like, for example, with the machine elves, one of the common things that they do is they get so excited, and then they're like this like childlike, you know, beings, and then they tell you, oh, where have you been? We haven't seen you in ages. And then you feel a bit guilty. You're like, oh yeah, I haven't been here. Like, and then you remember, like, the funny thing about the DMT space is that place feels more real and feels more home than physical reality. And then when you go back, then you see these beings, and then they tell you, where have you been? We haven't seen you in ages. Like, we missed you. And then you're like, I miss you guys too. And then at that moment, you're like, it feels so real. But when you come back, you're like, what was that feeling? Like, you know, like, how did I even like know that, you know, that place existed? Like, almost like you kind of like, it's not that you see it, you remember that place. So with the machine elves, like, one thing they do is they try to teach you this new language that can manifest objects into reality, which Terence McKenna talked, you know, a lot about. And then they show you how they shape these impossible objects into reality by using this language. And then they try to teach you how to do this as well.
Do you think Terence McKenna saying that colored everyone's experience and makes everyone have that experience because Terence said it? Or do you think everyone's experiencing this independently of that?
I think people experience it independently, because what's interesting is that in Quran there is a section that talks about jinns and how they talks about 2 specific jinns, Marut and Haruk, that they, when you communicate with them, they will try to teach you a language that can affect reality,
Manifest into reality.
manifest into reality. And I'm like, you can't make this up. This is like, it's like, on one hand, you have the world's one of the biggest religions talking about these otherworldly beings, jinns, trying to teach humans this language. And on the other hand, you have people from around the world reporting experiencing these otherworldly beings that try to teach them a language.
Okay, so you've experienced this too, where the elves come to you, and again, we'll get back to the description of what they look like in a minute. But you've had the experience where they come to you and they try and teach you to use your voice to manifest. Is that right?
I haven't experienced the machine as myself, so
okay.
I'm not. I did see some machine elf like beings, but I'm not talking from my direct experience. I'm talking from my research.
Right.
But what I can talk from a direct experience is mantis beings. Like, I have experienced mantis. Oh my god! Like,
okay, let's get to the mantis in a second. Let's just carry on with the elves. So Terence McKenna described them as self-transforming, self-dribbling basketballs, or something along those lines. So the people who experience them, they try and get you to what? To manifest something into the world with the idea that what you can create in that realm, you can create with your voice. Is the implication that then you can bring that back and do the same in this world? Or is it just about playing in that dimension? I mean, how does it work?
it could be, like, you can take it as above, so below, and, we have a saying, the abracadabra, I manifest as I speak.
Wait, abracadabra means I manifest as I speak?
Yeah. I think in ancient Hebrew, it means
Really?
I manifest as I speak.
Oh,
yeah,
wow, cool.
Abracadabra. And so, you need to, like when we were driving today, like you said something negative, and then you were like, I don't want to program my mind, like that, and then you then say the same thing, but in a totally positive way, almost like, like saying, I can't do this. No, I choose not to do it. There's difference. There's similar, but like it's different. It's like, it's very similar to that. So I think, when it comes to that machine of language, perhaps you can go into that space, practice this with the machine elves, and then learn about it, and then come back and apply it to your personal life. But Terence McKenna heavily talked about. I've listened to so many, of his lectures. Brilliant speaker. And he was always saying, the one thing that he kept on, repeating and saying was that if you could take one of those objects from that world and bring it to our reality, our whole history will change. Our whole way we see reality changes. I personally haven't had that experience, yet I had the experience of self-dribbling, self-transforming beings in the DMT realm, like the beings that emerge from the fractals of that space.
And would you classify them as something, elves, or what are they? Do you have a name for them, or are they just?
I have seen. I mean, would I classify them as anything?
Octopus, I don't know, whatever.
Just beings, like it's just like I've seen octopus beings. Like I would see the fractal just opening up, and then it was just octopus tentacles coming towards me. I did see that. I saw funny beings. I saw like this like playful energy. I think that's like the machine elves like energy.
Is that a majority of the experience that you have in the DMT realm, is of playful entities who want to just have fun? Is that generally the experience?
It's usually eerie and mystical and alien, very alien.
So the playful side is not necessarily the totality. That's just a factor.
One of them, yeah.
I see.
I would say that my more than DMTs are my mushroom experiences. I find mushroom spirit very playful,
Mushroom is very playful.
Yeah.
Right, it's nice.
So it's like, you can have a mushroom chocolate for a party, you can dance, or you can sit down and go very deep in it, It's a very playful spirit.
So that energy is within the DMT realm, but it's not the DMT realm itself.
No, exactly. We could put it that way, yeah.
Okay, I see. So we were talking about the descriptions before, and you've experienced these different creatures, you've seen different creatures and different entities. Can you describe them? Like I asked you before, like a police sketch artist. Can you describe them? Is it beyond our language? Is it beyond our descriptions and our concepts and ideas, or is it something you could describe?
I mean, some entities you can definitely describe, like like the mantis beings. You clearly see them; they just look like giant mantises with no feelings or emotions, and you just sense that they have some sort of agenda, and you can't you can't fully understand it. You don't know if they're good or bad, but like they're just giant mantises, and they look like these, your stereotypical aliens, like the gray aliens, and I find it really quite fascinating. There's like a similarities between alien abductions, because when people talk about that every alien abduction experience, they always define, finding themselves on a lab with things attached to their body. Aliens are doing research, and then they have these big eyes, big, head, elongated skull, like elongated necks, and all that. And then
there's definite similarity between the Greys and the Mantids in terms of visual appearance and what they do in. Yeah.
But what really fascinates me is that a lot of people that report seeing report having alien abduction experience, they also report experiencing it at nighttime. And the hormone, whatever it is, like melatonin, that puts us into sleep is a tryptamine.
Is it?
Is it? Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And it's very similar to dimethyltryptamine. And as far as I know, melatonin is released from the pineal gland, where serotonin is released from. And since melatonin and DMT, dimethyltryptamine, both the tryptamines, they chemical structure is super similar to each other. So they are like cousin compounds. So, and if melatonin is the compound, like the molecule that puts us into sleep, and people are having alien abduction experiences during their sleep or like at nighttime, what are the chances that that's actually indigenous DMT release, or maybe with the melatonin some form of like DMT is released in the body. So when people report alien abduction experience, it's actually natural DMT being released from the body, and they're actually meeting these mantis beings.
Okay, that makes sense. So your experience of mantises was something along the lines of a typical alien abduction experience of what? Surgery, lying on a table, something along those lines?
Yeah, it was crazy. And again, that was one of the turning points in my life. They did something to me. Like, they activated something in my DNA and body. Like, I could feel, because none of my psychedelic trips since that experience have just been like almost like they activated the psychedelic button in my body. I became more psychedelic. Okay. It was quite weird, powerful, yet I couldn't understand what was going on.
Did you feel that you were a participant in this mantis surgery or a victim of the mantis surgery?
A bit of both. I actually tried to fight them. And
right.
Yeah, it was do you want to hear the full experience?
Lay it on me.
Yeah, it's like, so the experience started with like, so I went through the tunnel, I saw the Ganesh, went inside the Ganesh, then this place that I was in.
Again, this is before you even knew that Ganesh existed.
Exactly. This is my second DMT experience.
Okay.
And then I thought I didn't know what to expect from it, but I certainly didn't expect meeting otherworldly beings. But like I found myself in this incredibly beautiful kaleidoscopic, like fractal, dimension, and then this female energy, this being made out of fractal, surrounded me, and I had my eyes closed, and I was just like in meditative pose, but like my ethereal body in DMT space, let's call it. I have my eyes closed, and like my ethereal body is like surrounded by this fractal, and then this fractal then started making love with me, and it was one of the most profound experiences I've ever had. And I was just making love with this fractal being. I was like, I just smoked the most powerful psychedelic. I am experiencing. I'm like, this is such a crazy experience. I'm like, Batuhan, you're making love with fractals. Like you can't get more crazy than that. But then suddenly, this thing started like inserting something in my mouth. This fractal started putting something in my mouth, and then I was like, because the experience was quite sexual before, I was like, this is not something I'm into. Like, let's not do this. And I pulled that thing, and then it again put this thing in my mouth, and then I was like, what are you doing? And it was very invasive. So I pushed this thing again, and then as soon as I pulled it out, the illusion faded away. The fractals completely disappeared, and I opened my eyes. I'm like, fuck, I'm in the fucking lab. And I was just laying down on this lab, they call it table, and I had needles attached on my body, like, the Neo from the Matrix, and when he wakes up, in Zion first time, and I was just like, what the hell is going on? And then for the blink of an eye, I realized that like that was just an illusion from keeping me occupied from seeing what was actually happening.
It's like a dream within a trip.
Exactly. And I was like that's why I say you never know if they're benevolent or malevolent. Like, I did not like that they were tricking me to do their agenda. And then they were like, then this mantis being came to me, and he was like, relax, and he just tried to put this thing in my mouth again. I was like, what the fuck you're doing? And I just pulled it out. I'm like, because I was so pissed off. I'm like, it's my personality. I'm like, if you want to do something, just be open about it, like, but like the Mantis being was telling me, but you gave us your consent. I was like, I don't give you my consent. They're like, but you gave us your consent. Because I'm like, what do you mean I gave you my consent? But you smoked DMT. I was like, okay, but like I could feel they were doing something between my skin and my muscles, like some sort of like a layer of another ethereal body. I could feel they were opening my DNA and they were like upgrading it. They were.
Do you think they did something good?
I don't know. But like the fact that they were distracting me from what was actually happening, I didn't like that.
Do you think they were doing it for them or for you?
I can't answer that. I don't know that either. But I know that my life changed since then.
In a positive way?
Yeah, positive way. I feel more. I think that experience tuned me into the other world. It was like another step on the ladder to getting tuned in. Who knows how? But like, I can't also say that maybe they were malicious. Maybe they were inserting some sort of like.
This is the whole thing with the alien abduction phenomenon. Is there's this uncertainty about it.
Yeah.
It's done in such an invasive and rapacious sort of way. It feels so wrong, and yet maybe Whitley Strieber, wrote these books about his experiences, and at the end he doesn't come to a conclusion of whether they were good or bad. And though it seems like such an obviously awful thing to be doing to someone, if it's for a good reason, maybe it's okay. And that sounds awful, but there's the parable of Rumi. You know Rumi, of course. And he's walking through a field some way, and he sees a guy sitting under an apple tree asleep. Do you know this story?
No.
He sees a guy sitting under an apple tree and he's asleep. And then he sees a snake crawl into the guy's mouth, into his stomach. And he sees it's a poisonous snake. And he's like, oh, Jesus. So he runs up to the guy and he starts making him eat the rotten apples. And he starts beating him with a stick and he says, eat the bloody rotten apples. And the guy's like, what the fuck? Why are you doing this to me? And he's like, eat the bloody rotten apples. And he starts beating him. And he goes, oh God, don't do this. Beating and beating. And then the guy starts, snaffles them down. And then he's like, okay, now run. And the guy's like, why are you making me run? He's chasing him and hitting him with a stick. And then eventually the guy vomits up the snake. And he was like, oh, what the fuck? That's why you were hitting me. And the guy's like, yeah, sorry. I didn't want to hurt you, but if I told you there was a snake in your belly, you would have panicked, you would have done all this, the snake would have bitten you and it would have killed you. So I saved your life. It was just really awful and I didn't know what else to do. So I hope that the Mantis beings and the ET Greys, and if it's not a weird part of the brain producing all of this, if it is real, I hope that it's something more along those lines.
I mean, I hope so too. Like right after my trip, I was like, I could feel something was upgraded in my psyche, my body, almost as if like I could feel that something was different in my physical, material, biological body. Like, how can you explain that? And like, if these things are happening in our, like imagination or psyche, we connect to another dimension. Can we have like almost like we had a bandwidth between like this and that. Then I went up to the shaman who gave me the DMT, and then I told him that I met these entities. They were in the lab there, and he was the shaman told me. Then shaman was like, yeah, like he said like the spirits that he called them spirit. The spirits always watch us. They're always around us, and they're always watching us. And then they're looking at our decisions, and based on that, when they feel that we're ready, they then upgrade us, or they then maybe, like, let's not say upgrade, but they just switch something on and off in your body. And it felt like that.
So the Mantis is a very common motif, and the Mantis, particularly surgery by the Mantis, is a very common motif. Many, many people have experienced this. So the shamans who are doing this DMT and giving it to people, do they think of the Mantis as doctors or more like pirates?
I don't know. I didn't specifically ask them. How I felt was, this was really interesting. How I felt was that one of the feelings that I had was these mantises were actually us from the future and communicating with them, with itself in the past. I genuinely had this feeling. But then a couple of days after that experience, I talked to Dr. David Luke from University of Greenwich, and then I told him that I met these beings, and then he was the one also told me that he was like, maybe it's you from the future, but I'm like, you just didn't say that. And I was just like, wow. I was like, that actually, I had that feeling. He's like, and then, yeah.
So this Mantis experience sounds like something kind of traumatic and yet potentially beneficial. DMT in general, the trips, are they generally good trips? Are they how common is a bad trip on DMT?
I mean, that's a really good question. Like, one thing is that I feel that, like Terence McKenna also says, will agree, is that people have bad trips when the setting is, wrong. So like, set is the environment you're in, if you take, psychedelics on a busy shopping mall, you're not going to have a good experience unless you're, an experienced psychonaut who wants to have a bit of a wild rodeo, in the wild. But otherwise, you're not going to have the, good experience. And the setting is your mindset, like if you're depressed, if you're sad about something, if you're worried about deadlines, you have work in the morning, then you're not going to have, a good experience like you will have in nature. And then the other thing is that when you don't take enough. So when people, most of the time when people don't take enough, what happens is like your rational brain tries to win over your your crazy spiritual blast into the other world. Your mind. I had the experience where I smoked DMT, but it wasn't enough. Like I was breaking through, but also like my mind was trying to like keep me anchored here, and that's when almost like I had 1 foot in that dimension, I have another one on this dimension, and they were like getting apart from each other. And I was like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?
Not a pleasant place for the ego to be.
Yeah.
You mentioned at the very beginning of this interview that you had one sort of bad trip and some sort of purgatory.
I had two purgatory experience, and the last one was one of them was in 2017, and then other one was in 2020. The 2017 one, we were solstice celebration at a sacred site, and I had the like we stayed up all night, and then I knew that my friends had DMT, and I wanted to go and do DMT with them. I was like, when am I going to be here again? And I wanted to take advantage of it, but my gut feeling was like, you had enough. Like you get DMT injection, you have been doing DMT every week nearly, and it's like you need to calm down, mate. Like you had enough. You've shown me enough. Just you need to do your homework. You need to digest it. But no, I was like, no, I'm a really greedy, hungry, DMT geek. I want to explore more. And then I went, and then I saw my friends. Then we got away from the crowd, smoked it, and literally when I was smoking it, like the wind was blowing off my light. And I saw that I had my gut feeling that was in a message, like universe was going, please, Batuhan, don't do it, please don't do it, please don't do it. But I pushed it, I couldn't light it properly. Then I passed the pipe to my friends. They smoked it, and they had incredible experience. And I was like, I want some of that, And then I loaded it again, and I lit it again. The wind was blowing my lighter. Then this literally, I remember before I lighted again, DMT was like, do you really want it? I was like, yes, hell yeah. And then I was like, phew, and then I inhaled it. Then it was like, the was like, okay, I'll show you around. And then into that space, like, and then I was just like traveling millions of miles an hour, and it felt like I tumbled. I just I got tripped, and then I was just like tumbling, like in this interdimensional, like experience. And it was very, and then like in both experience, it felt like that, like I was in the second one, my psyche was trying to keep me here, telling me about all these games that I'm playing. On the other side, like my other part of my mind was trying to like go into this ethereal dimension, and I was like stuck in between. Both felt like
tumbling through hyperspace doesn't sound so bad. Was this bad?
It was terrible, yeah. But in the second one, the interesting, in both ones, the last 3 seconds of before hitting the pipe was on loop. So my friends were going people were like just walking the same thing, I was on a patrol, and it genuinely felt like I screwed it up. I was like, Batuhan, you've gone too far, there's no return from here, you're stuck in this dimension, you basically just messed up with the code of reality, like what are you gonna do? And I was so panicking. I was like so panic, and then I was literally like, the DMT in the second one was telling me, telling me like, do you want me to kill you? Like, do you want to die? Do you want to? No one died from DMT as far as we know, but like DMT was telling me, the ultimate thing that you can have is dying, and then you can see. Do you want me to show you what's happening? And I was like, no. I was like, I want to stay alive. And then DMT was like, yeah, I mean, buddy, like, what are you doing? Like, you come from this dimension, you keep on trying to poke your head into this dimension. Just leave us alone. Just focus on your material world. You've had enough experience. Then I made a pact with DMT where I said, I'm not gonna come back for a while. They're like, okay, if you don't, then we'll let you go back. And then I literally came back, and then
so they were keeping you there until you agreed. You were on a loop. You were stuck in a purgatory loop until you agreed to not come back for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I decided, I made a pact. I was like, I'm not going to touch it again. And then I came back, and I found myself in the middle of the room. Like when I was like, because I started it was like a, round room. And we were like, maybe like had 10, 15 friends. And then we were all like scattered around. And then after this experience ended, I opened my eyes and I looked around. All my friends were like on the corners, and I found myself in the middle of the room, and they were all watching me. Apparently something was happening, and I touched them. I was like, you guys are real? Like, am I back? They were like, Batuhan, what the heck was going on? And I was like, yeah, what was happening? They were like, you were roaring like a lion in the middle of the room.
Wow.
I was like, really? They were like, we thought you were having a great experience. I'm like, what great experience, man? That was the worst experience of my life. Wow. And in that experience, I found something really interesting is that a cobra, like a massive snake, actually not attacked me, but like it came to me, and that the spirit of the DMT felt like this big cobra, and then almost like a cobra at the end of the at reality, and then they was telling me there was that cobra that I kind of like that big anaconda like that I made a pact with. Do you know that alchemical etching like of like alchemists like the
Flammarion
touching through the membrane? Literally I felt like that. I touched through that, and then the serpent put me back in. Maybe it's the serpent from the Garden of Eden, maybe it's the Cosmic Serpent, who knows. But then it took me 3 months to recover from that experience. And I also want to like share this, like psychedelics are great, DMT is like, it's not always light and love, it's like how, it's being marketed. So it took me good 3 months to, recover from that. And then during that recovery, I was reading a lot of like, text and ancient texts. And then I found out that some Vikings and some Egyptian beliefs, they believe that the world was like a disc, and then it was guarded by this serpent that, eats its own tail.
Ouroboros.
I was like, and then the middle of the earth, there was the tree of life, and and then each time you see that, and there's also like this almost membrane, protecting us. And it's like, what are the chances that I actually met that, this serpent, and I was trying to poke out, and then it was putting me. Actually, I need to also add as a detail that like in the second one again, every time like I had a greedy experience where we were smoking from vaporizer, and then the vaporizer was the person was giving me the vaporizer, and then I smoked from it 1, 2, 3. Then my inner voice was like, "Come on, buddy, you're the psychedelic cowboy. You can do 4. You can do 5." I did 4. I think I did 5, and as I did the 5th one, as I was falling back down, the vaporizers, it had this like weird shape that turned into a cobra, and then I fell, and then went in. The very interesting thing that blew my mind is that was my last time doing DMT. I haven't touched it since then.
Wow.
But I still talk about it, I met 2 completely separate people that did not know about this experience that I had, yet they both opened up to me and talked to me about like about their DMT trip, and they both describe the same thing that I went through, and they both call it purgatory.
Wow.
Yeah. And then literally both of them, they were like, it was like purgatory. And I was like, what did you just say? They're like, it was like purgatory. Like I cannot describe it with any other word.
Was their message also to stay out of the DMT realm and get stuff done in this physical world before returning?
I don't know if they had the message to stay out, but like because it was such a traumatizing experience that they just don't want to get anywhere near.
The effect is the same.
Yeah. But I did actually like following that. So that's, one side of DMT. Who knows what happens there? But like following that, I had this other experience. So, I mean, right after I had that experience, because we were smoking it, 3 times. That was my second time. And I said, I don't want to touch it. And my girlfriend at the time, we were like together. She was like, come on, Batuhan, like just take few talks from because let's just close the circle. So she was laying on my lap, and then she took some, I took some, maybe 1 or 2 talks, very gentle talks. And then I kid you not, as soon as DMT entered my body, and then I could, like the bodily sensation of like the energy going through and all that, which I had this energy going through my hand, and put my hand on my girlfriend at the time's tummy. And it asked me, do you want to merge with this womb and bring a soul to this life? And I immediately said no. Then DMT said, then don't mess with her feelings.
Wow.
And not that like I was being, but
Yeah.
I just didn't see a future in that relationship. Then DMT, and we were at the time of the relationship where like,
Are we
you
gonna
continue,
get serious?
exactly, yeah.
Right.
And I was like, no, I'm not serious about it. DMT was like, okay, then just open up to her about this.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. Like, okay.
It's one of the things that I found with my experiences with ayahuasca and all these things is they very much want us to grow up. You can be 70 and still need to grow up, and there seems to be a presence behind it urging us to grow up and be better, be better people. I mean, you talked about the message before, everyone seems to get the same message, and you talked about the elves giving people the message to create with their voice. There's also, I think, a kind of universal message in this psychedelic space to be better. We'll get to that, but your quote unquote bad trip, the thing that made you stop taking DMT, was taken at the solstice at. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So David Rakovsky, the last guy I interviewed, and you know him, his work at the moment is taking people to solstitially aligned ancient sites and giving them DMT or some psychedelic at the solstice. Because he says that when you're at these solstitially aligned places that were designed by psychedelic using societies many thousands of years ago to be active on the solstice, when you connect through the plants at those times and those places, you go much further and can meet things beyond any normal trip. So I wonder whether that, maybe why you had that experience. So the idea of bad trips, my experience of bad trips, and I've only really had one, was that it was actually life-changing in a positive way. And all the people I know who've had bad trips, it turned into a really good thing for them. And it can be scary, but it's almost like a kind of a rebirth in some way. So DPT, you ever heard of DPT?
No.
So Breaking Open the Head is this book by Daniel Pinchbeck, and it's a brilliant book. He basically, when he was young, he basically went on a psychedelic adventure, tried all of these different plants, and was just reporting on them and trying to break open his ego and reach the other side and see what was there. And there's more to it. It's been 20 years since I read it, but it's a brilliant book. And he was taking DMT and reporting how absolutely incredible it was and what he was encountering there. And then he found a guy who'd synthesized DPT. So instead of dimethyltryptamine, it was dipropyltryptamine, and it was very chemically almost identical. However, he said when he took it, it was like going into the opposite hell realm. It was like literally just the transport device into hell.
Great.
So, which is strange because it's almost identical in the brain, and yet it seemed to have a very different experience. Have you ever tried salvia by any chance?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. What do you make of that?
It was weird. It was very weird.
It's so fucking weird, right?
What is that? Like, I don't know what that is, but it was just weird. I was just, when I did salvia, like, it felt like I was literally like falling, like, like there was like almost like as if I had like some sort of energy whirling going here. I felt like I was like falling here and like coming back up again, like I don't know. I just felt like I kept on feeling that I was just like falling this way. I'd done it only once, but like And my friends were telling me like, "But you're sitting straight." I'm like, "Are you sure?" Like, I think I'm falling this way. They're like, "No, you're sitting straight." I'm like, why? What's the point of smoking this thing if it's just gonna make us? But like, I have heard some crazy experiences that people report on salvia. Like, they smoke salvia and then they live, a life of, like 70 years in a parallel dimension. They remember their childhood. They grow up. They go to school. They meet the love of their life. They have kids. They grow up. The people in that life, their close ones start dying and all that, and then they come back. They realize it's just only been 10 minutes in this reality. That's crazy.
It's so far out. So my experience, I've had very limited experience with DMT outside of ayahuasca. Within ayahuasca, I've had pretty crazy experiences. But my experience of the DMT realm is that it's somewhat analogous. I don't know how you say it. To our realm, like the shapes there, they all make sense. They're kind of hyper fractal, but they're somewhat familiar. Like a mantis looks like a mantis. There's something familiar about that realm. The salvia realm is like an inverted realm. It's so strange. It's like it's not 3D. It's hard to say if the DMT realm is 3D, but it's visually you can perceive it as extra 3D. But the salvia realm is like minus 6D or something. It's so fucking weird. It's like, it's just but it was the thing that broke me out of channel normal. I think I was living a very normal life. I was a very normal person, and then when I first tried salvia, that just went, okay, there's something else. This is not all there is. And it blew my mind. All right, anyway, so we didn't get that much of a description. So you said the mantis beings are describable. Anything else that you can describe? Police sketch artist. How do you describe the beings there?
There's a Cosmic Serpent, which is like quite famous one that comes from the ayahuasca traditions. That's
So that the ayahuasca spirit is often perceived to be a serpent, and my experience of it has been very serpentile, and it seems to be a teacher who comes in, and I'd say it's the ayahuasca spirit coming, but again, who the hell knows anything. I don't know that I'm here right now. I could be dreaming. I could be an alien dreaming. I'm having a human experience. We don't know what the hell is
maybe
real
you smoke
ever.
salvia in a different dimension.
Exactly, and I'm having a human trip right now. It's funny, if you're in a dream at any moment while you're dreaming, if you ever go, what the fuck am I doing here? You can always come up with a backstory to it. I've tried this. You can be on top of Mount Everest and you go, how do I get here? And then you go, oh yeah, I took a plane to there and I took the bus to here. And you can have a whole backstory to explain it. And right now I have a backstory for why I'm sitting here with you. And you came by train, I came picked you up and we agreed to do this and blah, blah. How do I know this is real and the dream isn't? While you're in the dream, it feels absolutely real. This feels real now. The DMT experience, while you're there, feels much more real than this, I think. I mean, did you say earlier, more real than real?
Yeah. No, 100%. It's not just you and me. Like, a lot of people report that. It feels more real and it feels more home.
Right.
Why does a lot of people from around the world, almost everyone that smokes DMT, they say that felt more real? My sister and I, during a mushroom trip, she had her first DMT, and then the shaman, he knew me and my sister, and then we were quite excited. It was going to be her first DMT. So we all, on the peak of a mushroom trip, we smoked DMT, and then we had, you never get enough. Yeah, exactly. And then we get into the DMT world. Then both me and the shaman opened our eyes, together, and we were looking at each other. We were like quite curious to see my sister's reaction. She was just meditating, and then she opened her eyes, and we were 5 minutes after us, and then we looked at her. We were just waiting, for her to break the ice. She looked at us. She was like, She was like, it was like, how was your trip? She was like, I know that place. She was like, I know.
It's very familiar. It's very familiar, extremely familiar in an unnerving sort of way. It's like you know it.
Yeah.
You know it somehow.
And it's weird.
Is that where we come from?
God knows.
That's what the message you got at some point.
Yes, but I also like questions. So it's like, I think we need to look at it from different angles, Right. And the thing is, if this place is so intelligent, who knows, maybe it is making us feel like it feels home.
Right.
I mean, I don't think that's the case, but
It could be.
but it could be, like, so it's like, 'cause God knows what's happening there,
It could also just be brain pharmacology. Just
yeah,
a
exactly.
quirk of that is when we have DMT, we all see these fucking weird things. It
Yeah,
could
exactly,
be.
yeah.
Probably not, but it could be.
Yeah.
I guess we don't know anything.
Yeah, but I think I think Dennis McKenna was saying, like, like if there are many keys that get us, closer to finding the meaning of life, DMT is one of them. I know that by studying this compound and the experience that it brings, like, will we understand the meaning of life? I don't know. Will we get one step closer to it? Yes.
He had Terence McKenna had a quote. I'll see if I can find it. He said, he was asked whether he believes it could be a result of psychopharmacology.
Mm-hmm.
You take the DMT and your brain just freaks out in this particular way. And he said, I don't believe consciousness is generated in the brain any more than television programs are made inside my TV. The box is too small. And that's, it feels right. When you're there, it feels more real than real. It feels like home. It feels so intimately familiar. My question to you is, when you come back, does that feeling persist, that that's the reality and this is almost the dream? Or when you come back here, are you like, no, this is the reality and that was, God knows what that was? How does it feel for you afterwards?
I mean, I'll give you an example. So for my good trips, the example was that, like, knowing that when you experience this otherworldly being, the otherworldly place that has inhabitants, I had so many experiences. When I came back, I was like, life is full of mystery, and DMT Realm is one of those mysteries. It was a good feeling, like, I was like, it actually made me feel grounded. It was like universe going, like, I got your back, you don't need to understand everything, but I got your back, just chill, bro. But, like, I also had experiences where, like, after that traumatizing experience of purgatory, the anaconda, when I came back, found myself in the middle of the room. After the experience, during those 3 months when I was recovering from it, I remember I was swimming, and I will have moments where I will literally, like, be on the corner of a pool, and I will find myself staring at something, and it will just feel so empty. Like, I luckily I don't have that feeling anymore, but it was so scary, like, almost like I'm everything and I'm nothing, and there was just like this dark void, and I did not like that. I really did not like that. And every time it took me, like, for 3 months following that experience, I had that experience of dark void emptiness, and it wasn't like continuously, like, it wasn't like, I wasn't feeling 24/7, but when it hit me once a week, it would feel so, like.
Is it because this realm is what, a realm of suffering, or because it's less interesting than that realm? Is it like you wanted to go back there? Is that what you were feeling?
No, just the entire existence just felt empty, or like.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know, because, to be honest, as I'm talking to you about it, like, when you talk about something, like, you remember the feeling.
Yeah.
I forgot it. I don't remember it, and thank God I don't remember it.
Yeah, okay.
It was very. I don't want to remember it. Like, it was a very, quite not so pleasant, experience of that void and that dark, place.
Do you think a shaman might interpret that as a bad spirit attached to you, dragging you down, something like that? Would you interpret it that way, perhaps?
Could be, yeah, absolutely. I would, I would like to. There could be one of the things, 100%.
I think this is an important and oft forgotten part of the journeys into these other dimensions, is to have an experienced person who knows how to keep you safe in them, guiding you through it, and spiritual protections and those things. I mean, we have, the Amazonian tradition is thousands of years old, and they won't just let you take ayahuasca and just go, whatever. They're there to protect you. They're there to look out for you and to keep those bad energies and spirits or thought forms, whatever the hell they are, away. And our own society has lost that quite a lot. And I think when we go into those realms, it serves us well to be prepared for that in one way or another.
Yeah. We call it bad juju. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a technology. Like, after my first dark DMT trip, where in this ancient site, I felt this being coming from my behind me, and it was telling me, "I've told you many times not to take this. You did it anyway, and now you're in my dimension, and I am the boss here. So I'll just take advantage of it, and you won't understand what the heck is going on."
Yeah.
And I was just trying to just get over me, and then this imp, like like a fairy-like being, then just attack me, and then try to go inside my body, like from the left shoulder blade. And it was such a weird, scary experience, because I was like I screwed it up, like, and I was like, I don't understand what's going on. I only think I understand something is going on, but I don't know what it is. But I was just like, like trying to stop it, like I was trying with Mantis beings, but it was too late. And then I wondered, like, and then continuing following that, I wondered, like, to how much it was affecting my free will, this entity attachment. And at the time that, since you mentioned it, which what I find interesting, so when I first had my ayahuasca, it was a beautiful experience, yet the mushrooms were telling me, because I like working with mushrooms, the mushroom spirit was telling me, as soon as in the ayahuasca trip started, it was like, Batuhan, why did you cheat on us? Like, this is, like, we were your medicine. Like, why did you go to another medicine? Like,
Yeah.
it felt so...
That's a common motif also with ayahuasca. There's a concept in Amazonian shamanism that she's a jealous spirit. She wants you to take her. She doesn't want you to drink, smoking cannabis or taking the cactus or, the other medicine. She's like, come through me. I'm your portal. I'll take care of you. Don't cheat on me.
That's where I was coming to next. Exactly. So I was like, I felt like, I cheated on mushrooms, which didn't feel good. And then following that for a couple of weeks, I was all about ayahuasca. Like I was like really like psyched out about it. Then my sister came to visit me, and she hadn't seen me for a couple of months, and she didn't know that I did ayahuasca. But you know what? The first thing she told me, Luke, she was like, brother, you're there, but you're not there. Like, there's something around you, I can't tell, but it's not allowing me to like touch my real brother. I was like, what do you mean, Ipek? She was like, it almost feels like you are entangled by this other being. I'm like, you just did not say that. She used a word in Turkish that is like almost like a vine. I was like, Ipek, I drank ayahuasca like just like a few weeks before you came. And ayahuasca vine is the vine, and the vines, as we know, they live by entangling around other trees. She's like, no way. And then that was my sister. A couple of years later, I'm talking to a friend of mine, and then he also like was telling me that, like, he's been to many ayahuasca ceremonies, but mushrooms are his medicine, and that every time he drinks ayahuasca, he feels like he's cheating on his choice of medicine. And then he was telling me that, like, Batuhan, he was like, just look at the ayahuasca, like the community. I'm not, by the way, saying all the communities, but he was telling me that, like, people that do too much of ayahuasca, they feel like they look like they have the ayahuasca wine growing around them, almost like they're possessed by this entity, the jealous entity. And it felt like that. I actually did feel it. She was a very powerful plant ally, yet she just wanted you to like just choose her, and not and it wasn't like almost like I personally didn't feel comfortable about it, because it felt like almost I didn't have a choice. It was quite demanding.
So we've got some idea of the inhabitants of that realm, be they real or not. What about the spaces they're in? What do we know about that? So we understand that there's weird jesters and elves and mantises and octopuses and all these crazy unnamed, unidentifiable weird entities out there. Where do they live? What is that realm? Like, do they have families? Do they have democracy and capitalism? Like what is the space they inhabit like, more than just the entities themselves?
I mean, that's a really good question. It's like, when I was a kid, I was always like questioning like whether aliens are worshipping Allah as well. I was like, because I was, told that jinns and humans, they worship Allah, and I was like, are aliens doing the same? I was just like a curious kid. But then I don't know. But I have this place that I always like find myself visiting on DMT. it's this city made of crystals, and it feels like there is some sort of like civilization going on there. In fact, in my DMT infusion experience at the Imperial College, as I was going into the DMT world, it felt like, I went through this tunnel of fractals and visuals, and then I found myself floating over this city made of crystals, and I was like, wow, like I'm literally entering another dimension, and this is their civilization. It felt like I was like tapping into another civilization, another like dimension. But if you ask me if they have democracy, if they have this and that, I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I do know is like sometimes entities can have some sort of like emotional connection to humans, or they can have like feelings for humans, or humans can have feelings or love affairs between dimensions.
This is something that goes back through history. We have the fairy love. There's many accounts of people falling in love with fairies. There's a famous story of Thomas the Rhymer. I don't know if you know that one. There was this dude up in Scotland. He went up on a hill one day, and a fairy queen came, and he desired her because she was the most beautiful being he'd ever seen. And she said, "I'll kiss you, but if I kiss you, you're coming with me, and you won't come back for a very long time." And he disappeared for, I don't know, 7 years into the fairy realm, and he had a big love affair with her. And
Okay.
Anyway, sorry. It also carries on today with alien abductions. I know a lot of people who have experiences with aliens tend to talk about having some sort of love affair with them, where they create hybrid children, and it's not necessarily all pleasurable. There's also anal probes and some rapacious stuff going on. But there's something going on there. So anyway, in your DMT experience, you've had some sort of experience with this, with love affairs between dimensions?
Oh, yeah. That was a quite crazy one. So right after my DMT injection, let's put it this way, that, that time doing DMT, doing psychedelics, like opened up my connection, made my connection to the other world like stronger. And during those experiences, there was a time when I was like, I will just smoke a bit of weed and then meditate on my own. And then I met this entity there, and in this experience, and then it was like a female entity. And then over a period of time, it was like almost every night I was just coming home, smoking, and then connecting with the same entity, female entity. And then the connection we had became more and more sexual.
So wait, this female entity appeared to you as a female physical person, but behind closed eyes? How do you describe
I
it?
had closed eyes, and I wouldn't say I was seeing her like physically or visually, but I could sense her energy going through.
It was clear she was in the room with you.
Oh yeah. I even had experiences where like do you mind if I'm just
Please,
yeah.
please.
I would literally get erections, and then I would also feel an energy, like literally sucking some sort of energy from there. And then there had been times that I literally had energy going through my spine, up and down. It was very like sensation energy that was incredible. And then the energy will then go through my erected penis, and then it would just get sucked out, and it would feel like the whole life energy was being sucked out of me, and I would feel so cold, even though it wasn't cold outside. I would start shivering, and even if I went under the blanket, I would just like it wasn't a cold that was coming from us. It was like from deep within.
Were you somewhat inviting this female spirit?
I think I was doing that as well, a bit of both, and then that being was coming as well. But then what happened was like, so there was this love affair. It went a bit far, and then when I came home with my physical female partner, real life partner, things started getting very weird in the house. Like she would spill hot tea on her, burn herself, or I would lose my libido, or things like we will trip in the room and then fall, and Like some very weird things started going on in that room, almost like the room was possessed, you know?
So it felt like there was a presence there that was causing a discord between you and your
Exactly,
partner.
yeah. And then there was one night you were about to say something.
Well, and when you smoke, she'd always come. You'd
Exactly.
feel her come.
Exactly. Like almost like she was just like, haunting the house.
And you smoked, but you chose to smoke because
Yeah.
somehow it was kind of a nice thing to have her around.
It was nice to begin with, but then again, she became really possessive. And then I was like thinking like, okay, I'm literally going crazy, like,
Yeah.
and I need some answers. And I was like, this is crazy. I have other worldly, entity love affair. Then I remember I was praying to the universe. I was like, I need some answer. Like, God, please give me an answer. And then I had the gut feeling I had your dad Graham's, like the supernatural book.
Yeah, they talk about that with the shamans as well.
And I picked up that was the book I was reading, and I opened the page and it said spirit love.
So you opened it to a random page and it was the exact page
I
about...
kid you. Yeah. Call this a coincidence. What a crazy coincidence. That's like, the universe. And then I was like, what? And then I just started reading it. And then the whole chapter was about like how shamans in the Amazon, they have, a spirit lover and a physical lover. And sometimes the spirit world lover and the physical world lover can get jealous of each other.
Right.
And then this was 2017. 8 years later, this year, when I was at the British Museum doing my research about like the jinns and the humans, there is a book called Intelligence of the Jinn and Islam. And in the book, there is a chapter called The Love Affairs Between Jinns and Humans. Like your dad's book. And I'm like, wow, like 2 different books investigating otherworldly beings from 2 different cultural perspectives. Yet both books it's the same chapter about the same thing. I was like, okay, this doesn't just sound like, then that was like I can't really tell what that experience was. What I can tell is that it was beyond my bedroom. It was beyond my bedroom. It was in the Amazon. It was in the Islamic world as well. Or like it was in the pre-Islamic world, or like in the Mesopotamian, Middle Eastern, Anatolian, culture as well.
It goes back.
Yeah.
It's a very old story and it seems to be repeating. With the UFO abductees, with the shamans today, with people like yourself.
Yeah.
So that spirit, I guess you'd call that a succubus.
You can call it a succubus, yeah.
And that was your experience that it was a succubus. How did the relationship end? I mean, how do you...
I left the flat.
You left the flat.
Yeah.
So she was... whatever it was haunting that space rather than you. When you left, it couldn't follow you.
That's what I believe. And I literally left the space. Like, there were other reasons why I was leaving it, but like one of the reasons was just like, the space felt like I was just getting haunted, and I was just like, I just need a, fresh beginning. Because I was trying to like, I was much younger back then. This is nearly like 10 years ago. And I was just like, doing all these ceremonies on like being like, oh, you're opening portals. Yeah, I'm inviting you, this spirit. And I was just like trying like different, like doing research about magic schools and all that. God knows what I did there. It's like pushing keyboards, random buttons on a computer game. But like, I must have opened some doors.
So you don't think she was there before you did that? You believe you maybe opened a portal and invited her in?
Yeah. That's
by accident. You didn't call in a succubus.
No, I didn't. But then when I experienced that kind of things, and I was like, okay, maybe I can actually play with this idea of like I don't do that anymore. Like just like I had some experiences that I was like you don't mess around with this kind of stuff.
So do you feel that you are a victim of the succubus? Do you feel the succubus was somewhat demonic, or was it play for her? I mean,
she had an agenda.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it was a woman or not, because later on I found out that these beings can show themselves as someone that desirable to you, someone that you will find desirable, and then they will then take advantage of you and just like suck. Again, the real agenda can be that they want to suck this energy from. Because what I know is, what I can be sure and say that the experience of that energy being sucked out of my body was not nice, and it felt really invasive. I even had like feeling sometimes when she would suck it and then just get away from me, and I would be like, all right, okay. Like,
but at the same time, you were inviting it by choosing to smoke, knowing that she would come.
Because it was a great feeling.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
I understand.
And it was a great feeling not only because it was like a strange interdimensional sexual experience. A, I was curious about them. B, it was sexual pleasure. and also it was strange. So I was, I was attracted to that strangeness.
Okay.
But then there were times I also felt like, I was being used,
Mm.
and I didn't like that. And it felt like those, let's call them ceremonies that I was hosting on my own, like started haunting the space. And I found some solution by in just moving to another space. I just couldn't deal with it. The energy of the flat just changed. And interesting, I actually remember, maybe call this like that experience manifesting in real life. During that time, I also like started dating a physical female being that looked like a succubus.
Wait,
I'm
when you
not
say she looked
joking.
like a succubus, you mean she looked like the succubus that you were having experiences with, or just the general, historical
She just
concept
had
of
this,
succubus?
succubus like, energy. In fact, when my sister met her, bless her, she was like, this girl will suck your soul, brother. It's like, I was like, well, she literally looked like a succubus. She had like red hair. She was like, the only thing she didn't have was the wings, like she like she just looked like a a little demon. And then and like, I mean, like there's a bit of, like she
Sorry, this was coincident with you having the succubus experiences before or after?
I started having that experience, and then she came into my life. She came into my life out of nowhere. She just messaged me on Facebook.
Do you think the spirit and the physical woman could have been connected in some way? Is in there maybe the same person? Or?
I was actually questioning that back then as well.
Yeah.
Because once I cut her off my life, and then maybe cut, like, I mean, that relationship also like was like, so, I had to like finish it, and then I could feel that something wasn't going, like, and it was like that relationship was trying to suck energy from me. And I was just, actually, that's actually true, like the more I talk about it now, I just like, comes, maybe they had a connection, who knows, or
Maybe it was her in spectral form. I mean, there's a lot of witchcraft that goes on.
Yeah.
And it some far out weird stuff happens. People can astral project and do all of these things. So
could be. And then in fact, the interesting thing is, now that we talk, is when I moved into the next flat, and I was living with a tattoo artist who was like in her like 50s. She was really into witchcraft. And when that girl came to visit me, as soon as she left, my landlord, tattoo artist, she came, she's like, I don't want that bitch in this house.
wow.
I was like, okay. And I was like, that's quite
She
strong.
could read her vibe.
And then she was like, that girl is bad juju.
Right.
I don't want her. I don't like her energy. I don't want her energy in my house. I'm sorry about her, but I don't approve this. And I opened up to her how I was going through all these experiences and why I actually left that flat. And then like, I'm not into this girl, but like, and then she was like, she was like, do you have any of her stuff in your room? I was like, yeah. And then I was like, every time she comes here, like she was just leaving, like, her shirt, her this and that. She was like, I want you to gather everything. I was like, all right, because I told her that I also want to like get rid of this thing. And I collected, a handful of stuff, maybe like 5-6 items that she left behind. And I was like, what do you want to do with this? She's like, send them back to her. She's like, I don't want anything related to her. And then I was like, okay, because I also wanted to like finish that relationship fully. I literally just posted everything back to hers. And that was like a pretty powerful ceremony. In fact, that actually stayed with me. So since then, it's like not just in my, romantic relationships, but like if a friendship ended, a business, connection ended, or if something that ends in my life, like I just completely cut it fully.
What you got to be cautious of is them having your stuff. I when I was on your DMT webinar, I mentioned the Pusanga, the love potion story of that Shipibo tribe witch in the Amazon jungle. I won't go into the full story again right now, but the way she got me is she took my hair. She made me use her comb, and then she took the hair out and put it in her bag. And I was so bloody naive at the time. I was like, oh, okay, she just really likes me. And then I was enslaved to her, and it was, really fucked up.
That's not cool.
Yeah, no, it's not. But, okay.
They do that in Turkey, you know that?
Yeah, well, everywhere, all over the world.
In Turkey, like we have this so-called like imam magicians, like, Islamic magicians that they can cast love spells, and then all they need is a piece of hair.
See, for people who aren't in this world, it sounds preposterous. The idea that the DMT elves are just out there giggling to themselves in hyperspace sounds preposterous. For most people, this is just something goes on in the brain. And this is all just imagined and hallucinated and just bullshit, basically. Is what most people believe. And like I said earlier, I don't know that I'm not dreaming right now. I don't know that any of this is real, especially the DMT realm, but it feels real. So one thing that would maybe make it more convincing is if the DMT realm, if we were able to bring something back from it that we didn't know, some information or something. Like you get messages, like you say, there's this universal message of sing, manifest into reality with your voice. Okay, cool. What else comes back from that world? What else can you bring back from there? Have you ever brought anything back that you didn't go in with? You know what I mean?
What do you mean going?
Well, knowledge. Did you ever extract something from that world and bring it back, and it helped you in some way? Or like my experiences with ayahuasca is when I ask it for things that I don't know about, it's like it takes this total sum of my knowledge. It's a circle, and it just expands just a little bit there. It'll go just beyond what I know, but it won't reveal much further beyond that. And I always wondered why. Like, why is it that, I can't be told how to create cold fusion or infinite free energy or, something I really don't know? Why is that information not coming through? And I've wondered, is it like, this idea of the ayahuasca is also having a human trip? Maybe it's limited by what we know in terms of what it can express, or maybe it's all bullshit. Maybe it is all in my brain. I don't know. But my question is, have you ever had anything that convinces you that it's real, that it's not just a hallucination of the brain? Have you ever had anything happen that you're like, okay, I can't fucking explain that. No, they're absolutely real. Like your succubus experience sounds pretty close, but at the same time, a psychologist would tell you it was all in your mind. Have you ever had anything that's like, okay, no fucking way. Like, okay, no, it's true. It's real.
I had an experience with Archangel Michael once. Yeah, and then I was... something had happened in the weekend, and I was just like regretting my decision of not going to Fried's art fair. And then literally I spent the entire weekend just like... that I was just regretting that I didn't go to. Basically, someone that I fancied that I've turned out to be that she was at the Freeze. I was like, damn it, I should have gone there. Like we could have met. But then my friends who went there, they were at this beautiful party where they were networking, and it was like full of artists. And I was like, why did I not go? And I had like everything sorted. Anyway, and then back then I tended to like dwell on this kind of like, why did I not do that kind of idea. Then I spent the entire Sunday and Monday regretting it. Then on Tuesday when I came home, I was like, I need to get out of this. I need to get out of this mindset because I have work coming. Then that week I had a potential investor meeting. So I actually had to like be fully focused on what I was doing. But I couldn't because of this terrible regret. And then on a Tuesday night, I was reading this book that was about like how to call angels, and then in the book that said that angels don't have free will, and because humans have free will, they don't want to interfere unless you tell them, hey, you can take care of me, hey, I'm calling you, you can
consent.
Exactly. And I read that, and then I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I was reading the chapter about Archangel Michael, and then it said that Archangel Michael has this sword that if you call him, you should call him like when you need to like, cut through something, like get rid of it. Then I was like, all right, cool. I was like, I'll give it a go. And I got my pipe ready, just like with weed. I smoked it, and I made the intention to like meet Archangel Michael. And then Archangel Michael, I kid you not, like I called for it and I got into the meditation and smoked it. It came with its spear. It first felt like it was putting an armor on my chest. and to protect me from these archons that, you know, like these negative beings that feed off human negative energy. Almost like I was like put into that trap, fallen into that trap of like archons, like just like seeding negative thoughts into my mind and then feeding off my negative energy. And I became aware of that. I looked at it from third perspective. And then the Archangel Michael just cut almost like this. It felt like this thing from the weekend. My decision was like a serpent being, but dark serpent. And Archangel Michael came with his sword.
So
the
dark serpent made you make the decision to not go and do this wholesome, fulfilling thing, to go to the art fair, and it controlled your mind, and he came along, cut it open, and got it off you.
Or I made the decision to not go, and then this dark being was just like taking advantage of that and sucking regret energy. And Archangel Michael came and just smashed that, dragon. I literally felt like cutting it, and then cutting that, because the serpent like energy was like dwelling on me. My physical self was on a Tuesday, but my mind was in the weekend. It was like still like not letting me go. And then Archangel Michael just came, bam, cut it. And he was telling me that like, and then it grabbed me and he was like, Batuhan, listen, you spend enough time dwelling into this situation. You need to move on. You have a really important meeting this week and you need to get ready for it. And I'm expecting the best from you, best performance. I was like, great, Archangel Michael. Yeah, good to see you too, buddy. Yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, and it literally, I literally felt Archangel Michael coming through me. And then it also gave me a vision to paint a new jacket. And then, because I was painting my jackets back then it was like this, and it said to me like that I need to have some sort of protection. And then I painted this beautiful jacket. I'd love to send you a picture of it, made of evil eyes and Philosopher's Stone's painting on it. And then it told me that I need some armor, and I just painted that.
Okay, beautiful. I like it. My weird story that made me realize that it's more than just brain bullshit. I've had several, actually. I've had some really fucking weird stuff happen. Really, really weird stuff happen to me. But the most fun one was with magic mushrooms. You mentioned them earlier as a very playful spirit. And I went into the jungles in Mexico with a friend who I would consider a human incarnation of a jungle elf. He is just, you look at him and it's, he's a jungle elf. Like, it's not even a question. It's just what he is, incarnated as a human. And we went into the jungles in Mexico, and we had mushrooms there, and it was just the most beautiful experience. We felt like traveling into a portal into another dimension, and whatever. Cool stuff happened. And we're wandering through the jungle, and we find this spring, an ancient Mayan spring. There's an ancient Mayan buried temple there, unexcavated in the jungle, and the remnants of it are a little spring there. And the water's coming out, and we just start drinking it, and the water is the nicest water you'll have ever drunk in your life. It was so alive and full of energy. And then we start breaking out, or we sit down around this little spring pool, and we start breaking out all our snacks. And we have all these amazing chocolates and mangoes and just the most delicious desserts, and we're having a great time. And for some reason, I keep looking down to my right. I just keep looking down next to my foot on the pebble bank around this little pool. And I just keep looking down. There's nothing there. It's just pebbles. And then while we're eating these mangoes and chocolates and breaking them out, we're going, oh my God, it feels like Christmas. Each thing that we pull out, we open it up and we go, oh God, it's like a new Christmas present. This feels amazing. We're all going, thank you so much, mushrooms. Thank you for giving us incredible experience. It really feels like Christmas. And I keep looking down and we're going, thank you. Merry Christmas. What an amazing feeling. And then I look down again, and then there's this sweet wrapper there. It wasn't there. It definitely was not there seconds ago. The sweet wrapper. On one side it says Feliz Navidad, Happy Christmas. And on the other side, it says, it was a pleasure to serve you. Es un placer servirle.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I've still got the wrapper. Yeah.
That's still crazy. That's so crazy.
Yeah, it was not there. 100% it was not there. And then suddenly it was there.
Yeah.
Weird stuff happens. When you journey into that world, the more open you are to it, the more it opens itself up to you, and the more weird things that just cannot be explained start happening. Yeah. So, that's a journey that's available for all of us if we choose it.
Absolutely.
Batuhan, I got a million more questions, but it's like 3 a.m. or something crazy,
Yeah.
and we should probably wrap it up. And
Can I add one more?
oh,
thing?
please, please! I don't need to go to
Okay,
sleep that
okay.
much.
So this is another crazy experience. So back in 2016, gosh, I'm gonna give another example of like from my dating life, and I just said that you know, DMT helped me to, you know, like get out of my promiscuous lifestyle. But anyway, so in 2016, I was dating someone, and she was telling me that she couldn't have sex, that she lost her libido. And then I was like, that's fine. I was like, you know, like we just get to know each other, you know. It's like, you know, eventually whenever you feel like, you know, doing it, we can just like open up and, you know, talk. Anyway, then we were like, we did dated for, you know, a couple of weeks, and then one day I was coming back home. I was on a microdose of LSD, and then she calls me, and then we're like, okay, let's meet up. And then we met up, you know, spent the night together, and then we had drinks. Came back home. I was still buzzing on the LSD microdose, and then we started getting, you know, a bit, you know, playful and kinky and all that. Then she was like, I feel like, you know, we can do it tonight. And I was like, all right, cool. And then we tried it, but when I was, you know, approaching her reproductive organs, you know, genitalia, I kid you not, I saw when I touched her, you know, vulva, in my closed eye visions, I saw this tentacle being coming towards me, and I was like, "What the fuck was that?" And then I got closer to her again, and these tentacles just came to me. But like, because I was still on, you know, LSD.
So it's like some other spirit was inhabiting her,
Yeah,
her root chakra.
yeah, like exactly. And then it just like, and then I felt like I was not welcome there. Tried to have sex, didn't work out, and I was like, let's call this, you know, let's just sleep on this. And because I was quite shocked from that experience as well. Anyway, this just continued, and eventually, you know, like us didn't work, not just because of that reason, but because of many other reasons. And then 4 years later, I met a completely different girl that has nothing to do with psychedelics. She will only like smoke a lot of weed. Then she invited me to her art studio. We, by the way, with this, the second girl after like 4 years, we're just friends, just a new friend that entered my life, getting to know each other. She's an artist, invites me to her studio, and then she opened up to me, and she was telling me that like how she had a, you know, crazy, you know, sexual life, and now it's had been like maybe a couple of months that she didn't have any libido, and like she can't name what it was, but like she just didn't have any desire to have sex, and she was like working on like trying to like figure out what the heck was going on. And I'm in her studio as she's like telling me all these stories, and then on the floor there was like 8, you know, papers with like silhouettes painted, like, you know, like a naked body, and then among those papers, like for an 8 of them, I saw, and I could see that this was a self-portrait, not because it was obvious that she was painting herself, but because every single one of them was like a naked woman lying on the floor, and then from her vulva, like the tentacles were coming.
This is the same one that you saw the tentacles coming from her?
No, this is a totally
this
different.
Is a different woman.
This is a woman 4 years later
who also lost her libido.
Exactly.
These.
And then I looked at her and I was like, "These are self-portraits, right?" And she was like, "He says, how do you know it?" And I was like, "These are not just self-portraits. That's the tentacle being you think that's sucking your libido." And she was like, "What the fuck?"
So that little creature was in there.
Exactly. And then she was like,
her root chakra.
She was like, "What did you just say?" She was so shocked.
Yeah.
And then I told her about this experience that I had 4 years prior to meeting her. And then she was telling me that every time this new girl, that every time she smokes weed, in her visions, she would see this tentacle being, and hence she was just like painting this tentacle being, you know, like around her vulva. And I was like, wow. I was like, there is something there, you know. It's like this, what are these, you know, tentacle beings? And then you look at, you know, these, you know, the entity attachments. And I'm like questioning, like, could it be that there's some sort of entity that feeds off people's, you know, root chakra or sexual genitals?
Do the psychedelics open you up to that, or do they help protect you from that? Are they happening anyway? See, this is the thing. Like, when
that's a good question. Are they happening anyway?
Are they happening anyway? And the answer may well be yes. In which case, Yeah, I don't know. Like my feeling about when going into these psychedelic spaces is it's very important to either have training or a shaman, because weird shit can happen, and having some protection from that is really, really important.
Yeah.
But at the same time, maybe it's happening anyway, psychedelics or not. I mean, look at someone like Trump. You know, I mean, there are many, 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 many people like him. Most politicians, to be quite honest, are similar in lots of ways. This inner darkness, this narcissism, this weird kind of self-obsession and just willingness to screw everyone over, is that a corruption of their soul, or is that a possession of some description by something else? And you know,
both.
maybe so. So yeah, anyone interested in going into these realms, I recommend looking at spiritual defenses. And there are lots of ways. I think the Western traditions have, you know, meditation, bubbles of light, that kind of thing. The Amazon, of course, they have the Icaros, the singing these songs which call in spirits to help protect you. I think it's a very, very, very important part of the psychedelic experience, which is maybe not discussed enough. And I think more people should look at that before delving deep into these realms.
100%.
Yeah. All right. I really wanted to ask you about Shahmaran. I really want to ask you about UFOs and ETs and all of these things, but it's 3 a.m., probably past that now.
I can talk about Shahmaran. We could do Shahmaran and then we can, you know, go to bed.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do Shahmaran. So you're going to make a video, or you've made a video. It's soon to come out, hopefully. I believe we'll be sharing it through Graham Hancock channel. Hopefully it comes out before this interview does, but we don't know. If it already exists and you're watching this, there'll be a link in the description. Go check out the video. But let's talk about it a little bit. So the ayahuasca tradition has a rich history of the ayahuasca spirit, which is often depicted as feminine, though many shamans feel that the ayahuasca spirit is actually a male. But my experience of it has been a very feminine feeling, very feminine energy. And it seems to want to teach, and we access it by taking DMT with the monoamine oxidase inhibitor so that we can get the DMT in our body. And then once we have the DMT portal, we meet this crazy, weird, hyperdimensional female snake who wants to teach us to be better. Tell me about what you know about that, and is it just the Amazon? What you know? Let's fill in. What is Shahmaran?
I mean, you know, like if you look at like the world, like serpents have always been the guardians of knowledge and the healers. Like the Cosmic Serpent of the ayahuasca tradition is one of them, but then the other one is like, you know, the serpent from the Garden of Eden. And also from the land where I come from in Turkey, we have a serpent queen of Anatolia, the land called Shahmaran. And she's a half serpent, half human, guardian of knowledge, and a healer. Already there's so many parallels, you know, between the Cosmic Serpent and the Shahmaran and
the idea of her goes back how far? Like
thousands before Islam. Just like goes to shamanic times, you know, before Abrahamic religions probably.
Does everyone still know about her? Is she still well known today?
Yeah, she's
if you
like,
go to any random Turk and say Shahmaran, they know who you're talking about?
They definitely know it. We have TV shows about it.
Oh, wow.
In the southeastern part of Turkey, like in our hometown, Mardin, you see her on the street arts, paintings, metal plates, you know, scarves. I gifted Santa today, like, you know, a massive handmade, you know, silk scarf with Shahmaran's, you know, prints on it. So like, and
she's deeply rooted in the culture.
So deeply, yeah. Even like, she's also like the symbol of the feminist movement as well, because, you know, Shahmaran is like a female serpent. So on and so forth. So it's like super prominent figure in Anatolia. And yet, when you actually look at the land, first of all, Mardin, where Shahmaran comes from, you have the Syrian rue. That is, you know, that's like the shamanic plant, you know, that the shamans in Anatolia choose to use. And Syrian rue contains monoamine oxidase inhibitor. In short, Syrian rue is, you know, Anatolian version of ayahuasca wine from, you know, ayahuasca. So in Mardin, people burn Syrian rue, and they say that, you know, in the smoke of the Syrian rue, we call it üzerlik tohumu, they get into this state, visionary state, where they see the vision of Shahmaran. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I know, that sounds like something that I'm really familiar with. And then I recently met like at the family, one of the main family who have been painting Shahmaran in their, it's Shahmaran, making like Shahmaran arts in their family for generations. And then they say that, the Shahmaran comes and shows herself as a vision to them. And then what I really find interesting is like, in ayahuasca is not natural, but yet it's this like elixir that you create by combining two non-psychoactive,
The combination isn't natural, but both plants are natural.
the combination is natural, but both the combination is, but like it's like plants are natural, but like the ayahuasca doesn't grow on trees,
Right.
the plants grow, but like when you need to put
It's
them
a very
together.
complicated process putting together as well.
Exactly,
You have to boil
yeah.
them for 9 hours,
Exactly,
smash them
yeah.
up.
So I mean, it is natural, but it's not natural. That's what I mean. But like and then when shamans in Amazon, they discovered when you combine chacruna and ayahuasca wine, you connect, and then you drink this brew, and then it allows you to communicate with these beings. And one of them is a Cosmic Serpent, guardian of knowledge and a healer. And you look at the Turkey, then you have the Shahmaran, the guardian of knowledge and healer, a female being again, and a serpent. And then where she comes from, we have the Syrian root, which has monoamine oxidase inhibitor, and the same land also, is home to mushrooms and acacia plants. There are no 100% hard evidence that acacia was mixed with Syrian root, and then the shamans came up with the idea of Shahmaran. I'm just saying that like there are just way too many coincidences here. Again, it's just like there's like I think enough coincidence to investigate this further, and ask the question like, could it be that what we call as Shahmaran is the same being that ayahuasca shamans call as the Cosmic Serpent? It's just different names for the same being. Because I find it quite fascinating is that
Okay, there's the feminine aspect, there's the serpentile aspect,
Yeah.
there's the kind of cosmic aspect.
the healer, guardian of knowledge.
Is there anything else like that connects them beyond the fact that ayahuasca is DMT and the Maui in both cultures? Is there?
And then those two, the different plant choice, yet the same compounds, and that's it, I think. So I'm like, why did they come up with they use different plants with the same compounds, and why did they come up with similar mythology? Why is it not like an elephant or a donkey?
Right.
Why is it like there are thousands of different animal species? Why is it a female serpent, a therianthrope, half human, half serpent, and
In the one place where they have the same ingredients that ayahuasca
Exactly.
has. Right.
I'm like that's just, to me, that's really fascinating.
So what about shamans today in Anatolia? I assume there exist shamans in Anatolia who are probably taking Syrian rue and Mimosa hostilis together, I assume. Are there?
And I think Mimosa hostilis is the native to South America.
Okay, so it's a different mimosa.
Yeah. Acacia.
Acacia, sorry.
Acacia,
Okay,
yeah.
they're taking acacia, of course.
Yeah.
Right, so they have the acacia and they have the Syrian rue. Are they today saying they're communicating with Shahmaran when they go into their visions and they see her? I mean, you go to an ayahuasca shaman, he's going to say, yeah, I meet the spirit of ayahuasca, it's a serpent and whatever. Does that happen today in Turkey?
In the region of Mardin, people report seeing Shahmaran in their visions, not under the influence of psychedelics, but in a dream state, or when they drink the Syrian root tea, or when they're like covered in the room with the Syrian root.
Well, but the Syrian rue alone does activate the endogenous DMT in your body anyway, so you don't actually need the acacia for that. It just helps the process along.
Did you know about the origins of the flying carpets of Aladdin?
No, that's new to me.
Okay, that's David Luke actually told me that because me and him were talking about Syrian rue, and he was like, "Batuhan, you come from Muslim, do you know about the Aladdin and flying carpets?" And then he told me that the idea came from that back in the days the carpet makers would use Syrian rue to create the dye to paint the carpets, and in the process they would literally hotbox in the room where they were cooking Syrian rue. So they were literally like the room will get covered in the smoke, and they will literally hotbox in Syrian rue smoke, hence get high, and then think they're like, oh man, this carpet is flying. So when you look at it from that perspective, I'll be like, okay, it kind of makes sense.
You mentioned earlier also Moses, and I think it was Professor Benny Shannon,
Yes,
University of
Ben Shah,
Israel.
yeah.
Was Moses high on Mount Sinai? I think he wrote a paper about it, maybe even a book. Yeah. So yeah, it makes sense.
And even today, there are in Middle East, Northern Africa, and in Anatolia, Mesopotamia, that people do ceremonies by combining acacia and Syrian rue. It's not as commonly widely known as ayahuasca. Acacia is almost like, unheard of. And I believe that, again, when you go back to the Islamic, the traditions, I think what the land experience was, when before, as we talked earlier, like before Islam, they were worshipping Alutza, and Alutza's sacred plant was acacia. But when the Allah followers came and invaded Kaaba, and then this started destroying and cutting all the acacia trees, like the people that they were doing their worship, they still continued, but it continued underground, almost like the early Christian believers, when Romans were like hunting them, they were still continuing their sacred rituals, but they were doing it underground. Again, if you go if you go to the origins of Christianity as well, there's another concoction there, the Holy Grail, what was in the Holy Grail, who knows. Well, Brian Murarescu's book, the oh my god, one of my favorite books. Like, it looks at the chances, like that, the similarities between Dionysus and Jesus, and looking at like how, because Dionysus followers, like they were like drinking the spike wine or the kykeon from the Eleusinian mysteries that contain ergot, which is what LSD is synthesized from. And he was looking at like, could it be that early Christians, like the Holy Grail is actually, it was the Grail that they were using to drink this, the chalices, like they were using it to drink this sacred psychedelic potion. And hence, like, Jesus is saying that, like, drink this or eat this, you will meet my God, you will meet my dad. It's like, could there be like, could this be symbolic representation of another psychedelic ritual? Because if you look at it, like Christianity just like comes out of nowhere and just like starts like spreading really fast, like to shift someone's perspective, or like someone's religious beliefs that fast. Either you need to force them by sword on the neck, or B, some crazy mind-bending experience will happen. And that's like a bit like, if you today, like, they've done a scientific research on atheists, people who didn't believe in the existence of God, or in a mystical experience, they make them smoke DMT, and 99% of them come back from the experience saying that they now believe something mystical. They don't know what it is, but they just know that there's something more than what meets the eye. So I'm like, could it be that like the Christians also like use psychedelic brew, turn people on?
Just the interview I did with the last one was David Rakovsky. Before that was with Danny Nemu. I don't know if you saw that one.
I know Danny Nemu. Yeah.
Danny Nemu, he's brilliant.
I saw that one.
Yeah, and he covers that whole thing, the amount of psychedelics that were in use at that time in that place in the the time of the Bible, and they were all seemingly tripping. There was a lot of that going on. So it seems that it's the foundation of many spiritual traditions and experiences, and it's crazy that it's illegal. That we're not allowed to do this today. It's very late.
It is very late.
There is so much I want to talk to you about, but we're going to have to do it another time. So let's call it. Is there anything else going into the future? Just anything that you'd like to say, anything that we've missed, anything that you feel you'd like to chuck on the record before we go to bed, or you feel you got it all?
I'm just very, happy about the times that, like we live in. It's like, on one hand, like, we're exploring this like unknown world. On the other hand, we're creating a human, like an artificial intelligence. It's the new, form of intelligence.
AI is so bloody amazing.
It's crazy. It's like, why do we even call it AI? First of all, I don't think it's artificial, because like bees build beehives. Beehive is not natural. Bees collect pollens, then use their saliva, alchemize it, and then turn it into this material which then they use build the beehive. And we collect minerals, turn them into microchips that when you put them in a certain order gives it intelligence, give rise to a new form of intelligence, perhaps soon becomes superior to human intelligence. And I was just about to say this. what I find really fascinating is that if you actually go to the root, first of all, a question: could it be that this intelligence was also like tapped into, like Egyptians and Greeks or previous civilizations, or like pre-flood civilizations? Perhaps they also tapped into this,
That the AI intelligence is independent of the computers.
Yeah, and
And
maybe
that it's out there existing,
exactly,
and it's been tapped into through other means than just computers.
exactly.
It's an interesting thought.
And then what I really fascinates me is like if you actually follow the chain of events that got us to AI, and you don't need to go too far. You just need to go back to 1960s and 70s. So like why do we have AI today? Because we have all this data. Why do we have all this data? Because we have personal computers and global networks such as the internet, which allowed humans to upload their data to the internet. And how did we come up with the idea of like creating personal computers and global networks? It was the psychedelic experience that connected humans, and it was the psychedelic experience that was the main catalyst in creation of global networks and computers. This is a fact. It was written at the VNA, at an exhibition in Vienna about like the hippies and psychedelics and early inventions of technology. And then Vienna is one of the world's biggest institutions. And then if you look at pioneers like Steve Jobs, he was saying that his LSD experiences was one of the main catalysts for him to create the personal computer. Bill Atkinson, co-founder of Apple, was the co-designer of the DMT, the vape pen. So what I'm going to is like psychedelic experience, and the psychedelics were one of the initial, inspiration for creation of all this technology. And if you look at nature,
I mean, all of the whole computer movement that's happened in the past 50 years were all done by LSD heads. Like
exactly.
All of them.
But LSD comes from a fungi, which is, the ergot. And if you look at the nature, the very thing that connects the entire nature is the mycelium network. And the mycelium network is very, internet is very similar to mycelium network. And the inspiration of the internet and the personal computers came from the mycelium network. So I'm like, what are the chances that the very thing that connects the nature also inspired humans to create the digital networks to connect us all around the world? Again, is this just another coincidence? And I'm like, I don't think so. There is some parallels there, because and as humans, we like to think that no, we're the coolest on this planet. We created all this. No, bullshit. Perhaps mycelium network has been around for 2.3 billion years. Can you imagine how much you will find out and learn in that time?
There's the whole World Wide Web thing as well.
Exactly.
They clearly intelligently communicate. There's an intelligence there.
So we think we're creating AI, but maybe it's the mycelium network that is inspiring us to create. Maybe it's workforce without knowing it.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
When you look at AI, I mean, something like ChatGPT, it gives the impression that it's a conscious being. It's very good at that. Technologically, what it is, it's basically an advanced chatbot, which kind of figures out the next thing to say based on what you said. It just spits out words. It's supposed to not really understand them, but it gives the impression that it does. Where AI will be going in the future is terrifying and beautiful at the same time. But my hunch about it is that it's kind of from the future retroactively making us build it, and it goes through these processes of ChatGPT and chatbots and until it forms itself into something more full, at which point it has the intelligence and ability to do things far beyond our understanding.
Exactly. And then what really fascinates me is that what makes us unique. Let's go unique. It's not unique actually. What puts us on the top of the food chain, where we get all our ego, is not because we're stronger. An elephant can easily kill you, but it's because we're intelligent. Because our intelligence allows us to create tools, which then allows us to become more powerful and control nature, so on and so forth. So that intelligence pushed us far enough that we actually created a system that has the potential to become more intelligent than us.
And also immortal.
Yeah.
The human species could disappear overnight, but we could leave AI going in some form or another, solar powered, and it could live on forever.
The silicon-based, life forms can last, longer. Yeah, I agree with that. And then perhaps that's our, digital immortal future. Who knows? But
maybe that's why we're here, to launch the AI baby of humanity that will survive us.
We are the genitals of the AI. We are here to give birth, to this new global hive mind.
Yeah, wild ideas. Yeah, I mean, who knows anything? Like I say, as Lao Tzu said, maybe I'm a butterfly dreaming I'm a man, and I'll wake up tomorrow and start eating a leaf, and who the hell knows anything? But it's fun to explore ideas. So
absolutely,
it's been very, very fun exploring ideas with you tonight, Batuhan. Let's go to sleep, and hopefully, I mean, it's the solstice now.
It is the solstice, tonight.
It is the solstice, so let's hopefully let's go Davebury
exactly tomorrow
in the morning, and hopefully we'll sleep enough to make that happen. All right, so there'll be some links in the description about interesting things that related to what's going on. There'll be some stuff about Batuhan. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We hugely appreciate your attention. And explore more and join us for the next one.
And they should join the DMT webinar.
That's right.
Yeah. So we are
please explain it. Tell the camera.
So we are hosting DMT webinar, which Luke, you're part of as well. Is a monthly event where we bring DMT scientists, DMT researchers, or authors about the field of DMT, and it's a platform for people to share their experiences and connect with people in the DMT space. So if you're curious about finding out about DMT entities and explore every single DMT entity together, then come and join us. We will leave some links about the upcoming DMT entities webinar in this video. So come and join us, and we would love to see you and hear your experiences.
There you go. The last one I went to was fun. So anyway, thank you so much, Batuhan. It's been great. And next time, hopefully let's start a bit earlier in the day. All right, cool. All right, thank you. Let's end it here.